welcome to the official Lakes International Comic Art Festival podcast. My name's Ian.
And my name's Nikki, bringing you the best in comics and graphic novels and updates from the festival.
Hello and welcome to the Lakes International Comic Art Festival podcast. My name's Ian.
And I'm Nikki.
Well done, you did it right for once in your life.
Occasionally I like to throw that curveball in of doing it right.
On this jam-packed episode.
Bring it on.
Okay.
My ears are ready.
Mike and Pete are back with Sword and Sorcery.
We have to keep them away from each other.
They are just... I don't know, actually. I was going to say words and it probably wouldn't have made sense, so I'll shut up.
Yes.
We've got a bit of news to talk about. We've got some two wonderful books to discuss.
We do.
Sparks and Guantanamo Kid. I nearly mixed that up.
You did. That wouldn't have worked.
We've got a great interview with Tim Pilcher regarding the Breakthrough Project coming up. We've got Comic Art Festival news.
There is just so much in this episode.
There is. And we've also got a certain trailer to discuss.
A trailer.
Which you're not impressed with. But you have
I
issues,
never am.
so... Let's get straight to the news first of all. Get that out of the way. Then we've got a load of Kickstarters to talk about. News sponsored by DownTheTubes.net. Promoting comics on the web since 1998. James Gunn has been rehired. Arrow's been axed, and a major podcast signs a major star. Yeah, you know it.
I do know it. I was just thinking, I wonder who that major podcast is.
So, first of all, James Gunn has been rehired by Marvel, or by Disney, I suppose, to direct Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Do you know why?
I wonder why.
I'm thinking a lot of dollar signs.
Ka-ching! What? All of the stars are wanting to leave because he's been pushed out.
Oh no, we can't lose all this money. Quick, rehire him.
It's scary, isn't it? But I suppose that's. But then again, they shouldn't have sacked him in the first place.
But greed is a funny thing.
Well, it's social media, isn't it? It just causes so many issues, and it shouldn't do.
It shouldn't do, but it does.
People's past, unless it's severe, shouldn't affect their current time.
Very true.
Unless it's severe.
Yes.
Unless it's illegal or it's, then no. So why? It doesn't make sense. The world that we live in, Nicole. The world that we live in.
I know.
Next.
Yes.
Let's be more positive.
Go on, bring
Arrow's
it in.
been axed.
Oh.
Although, to be fair, it's a positive axing.
Yay.
Because
Why?
they feel, the writers feel they've come to the end of the story.
They came to an end a long time ago.
This is going to be the 8th season. They feel, they've got to a point, and which most people need to do. They need to do this with shows, Yeah,
but why do they cram so many episodes in per season?
Well, this one's already 10. The last one's already 10 episodes. That's great.
That's fine. That's manageable. Anything.
It's 24 odd, when it just keeps going and going, and you think,
These are just filler episodes.
Yes. And
That's
it's sad. The Flash could be so much better if it was cut in half.
Fillers out, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of things could be. I think stay between 6 and 10.
It's like the new Ricky Gervais, which we started watching. 6 episodes.
Yes, yeah.
And it's like, that's British comedy all around. They do that. Fawlty Towers did it, The Office did it, Gavin and Stacey.
Yeah.
They're all short, get to the point.
Yep.
No filler episodes, all quality.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's what's needed more.
Yes, but Americans don't do it that way, sadly. And I don't think it's going to change either because people keep watching it, so,
Yeah. It's what you're used to, isn't it?
And a major podcaster signed a major star.
Signed?
Okay, so the major podcast is us. We've got a new contributor going to be joining.
A who?
Contributor.
A contributor.
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 Joining the podcast. Tom from That Comic Smell podcast.
What an announcement for him.
He's coming on. He's going to...
Does he know what he's doing?
Not yet.
Okay.
He's going to do what Mike and Pete do, as in just do small segments. Mike and Pete don't often, when they get together anyway.
We cannot let them get together. Imagine if like Tom got together with those two.
The Bible of comic podcasts. So, Jesus, that'd be a full day's rant, wouldn't it?
It would.
Yeah.
It would. We can't let that happen.
So Tom's coming on. I think the plan is going to be he's going to look more at small press comics, but it's up to him at the end of the day. He can do what he wants with his 5 minutes.
Is that what he's having?
That's the plan. It never works at 5 minutes with these guys, never. But That was the idea, so that they didn't have to worry too much about the content, the amount of content. But
yes, yeah.
But anyway,
how many hours did they do? 3?
3 on this next segment. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shows us up.
10 minutes, we're done.
That's me. You meant to disagree with that. Let's move on. So I've got a load of Kickstarters I want to talk about. Briefly,
okay, roll out the Kickstarters.
Okay, you ready?
Yes.
First of all, Everington Brothers are back with How to Think When You Draw Book 2. And their art books and stuff are back up again as well. So currently, they're only sitting on £156,000 with 23 days to go. So,
is that all? Have they reached their goal?
and I've just seen it go up like another 50 quid just in front of my eyes, just like that. So fair play to him again.
Yeah,
Lorenzo
done.
is doing well. Well, it's not Lorenzo, this one, isn't it?
Is he rubbing it?
But Robin's doing a writing one coming out later in the year.
Oh.
How to Think When You Write.
That's good.
So that's coming out.
You need to back that one.
So yeah, if you like to see the original, if you didn't get the book one, then you can get it now.
Brilliant. It's a fantastic book.
So go and have a look at that. Okay. Next one. We reviewed it last issue, but Dunce, we reviewed the previous ones. Dunce number 5 is up.
I'm so excited for that one.
Jens K. Stive. I can never probably say his name properly. Tell us how you say it properly, because I'm probably saying it wrong. It's just funny.
Oh, I think they're brilliant.
It's just entertaining. What I loved about this one, because we've backed it, is you back it in knocks.
Yes.
Knocks.
100 knocks, wasn't it?
100 knocks. I love it. So, but yeah, it's a bigger book this time. The thickest one is done, 40 pages. So the cost is probably a bit more than what you'd sometimes pay because you're getting it from over there.
Yes.
But it's worth it. I feel.
Yeah, it is definitely worth it.
His work is exceptional.
Yeah.
And there is also a package with all of them. So if you've not read his books,
definitely get the package.
Then you can get the package with a lot of them. So go and check that. Just search Dunce and it'll pop straight up. Next one is obviously Killtopia 2. So Dave, he said he was worried.
He was worried.
He was worried it might do so well. You know.
Yeah.
I think within an hour or so, it's only within a couple of hours he'd broken the target.
It wasn't long.
And again, 17,000 now.
Brilliant. That's fantastic.
So, yeah, Dave, he's not going to do very well. So there is a load of extras now going when you just buy the book itself, and then if you upgrade slightly, there's even more prints. There's just so many prints.
I wonder if he's worrying now.
Yeah.
we need more stretch goals.
Now there's too much work. So yeah, if you like it, grab it. If you're going to buy it, back it now to get all the freebies.
Oh yeah,
that's
definitely.
the way to do it.
Yeah.
You know, if you think, I love the first one, I'll get it at some point. No, do it now.
Yeah.
Get your freebies. The next one, keeping going.
There's so many out there. It's so broke. We are
my
so
issue
broke.
is, well, not an issue. My problem now is we've got something we can read digitally. I can look at these and just go and back them for a few quid to get the digital.
Yes.
So I'm more pulled
more broke
in.
than normal.
More pulled in. That's the thing. Because it's like, yeah, it's fine. Because you get that much. You can't always have all the comics on your shelves and stuff. But digitally, just sit there and it's like fine. So Frank on the Farm, number 1. By Mad Robot Comics. Now, they emailed us about this, but it pulled me in because the style and art is just gorgeous. It really is very detailed. I'm just trying to. It's like the horror of The Shining meets the body horror of David Cronenberg's best work, which, as we know, David Cronenberg is scary.
Very scary.
So yeah, that's well worth checking out. So have a search for that one. Again, it's not far off hitting its goal, so
brilliant.
Not much more to go with that.
These are doing really well.
Last 2, we're nearly there. Lyndon White.
Oh yes.
Obviously, the War of the Worlds book is up. It's doubled its goal. Brilliant. So it's coming. It's coming. No matter what, it's coming. Obviously, take part in our little competition that's currently running.
Yes.
To win a copy of his previous work, the Cthulhu. Just retweet.
Yes, it's brilliant. It comes in a little envelope that's seal wax. Wax sealed even, not seal wax.
And a little print as well.
Yes, it's gorgeous.
So, yeah, all you have to do is go on Twitter, retweet, follow Lyndon, and you're away. But yeah, go and have a look at that book there. They've got a beautiful little video playing. And now the final one we're going to talk about today. Little Heroes Comics Charity Anthology number 3.
Whoop, whoop.
So, this has just hit its goal, 1,500. So it's done. They've got it. However, we're going to be a bit selfish here and talk about a stretch goal. How could you not have thought what? You had no idea what I was talking about then, did you?
Because I can't. I get nervous.
So if they raise another 250 essentially,
Come
so
on,
1,250, there's a print coming from Dan Butcher from the Awesome Comic Podcast.
Yes.
And there's also another print from who?
Me!
From you!
You get one of my little prints.
Entitled Looking Out to Space.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think you chose the name of that one. I didn't have anything to do
Possibly,
with that.
I'm not sure.
Yes, I'm pretty certain I sent you the picture and then you went, I saw it had a name.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, Nikki's done a print, obviously, voluntarily for the charity. So, go and have a look at that. It's up.
Yeah, it looks really,
I think anyone
really chuffed us.
Anyone who backs for a physical copy will, if they get to which I imagine they will do, will get the prints. You could also, so £5 to pledge for the physical one. There's also pledge, I think it was £10, and you can pay for delivery of one of the boxes as well as getting a comic. So it's sort of giving that a little bit more. Yeah. So check that out.
Definitely. And let's get it to another £250.
So that everyone can see your print.
So everyone can have one of my prints
on
their wall. That's what everyone wants.
Okay then, let's do some reviews.
Okay.
Which one do you want to do first? We'll do Sparks.
I don't mind.
Sparks. I'll let you read.
Do you want the blurb?
The blurb.
Do you want the blurb? It's only a little blurb, it's so sweet. The stars are going out. Night never ends, and while others only wonder, Sparks, the bravest little robot, sets out to discover the reason why.
So this is by Lyndon White.
It is.
Obviously he sent us this as a nice little gift, which was lovely of him.
Yes.
To help support, or thank to help support in his work. And first of all, as with Lyndon's work, his art, it's just, I mean, it's done in a lot of black, first of all. Yeah, well,
he's done colour on black card.
Yeah, which is very different to a lot of books.
You get the reverse shadows. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, you're picking out the highlights instead of shading in.
I mean, one of the things he said, the reason why you'd like it is sparkly otter.
I love the otter. I had a tear at one point.
So what's the basic storyline?
The stars have gone out. Day doesn't come. It's just night. It's horrible. It's awful. And Spark's little robot and his little friend, the otter, who's shining because the star falls and goes and finds it. And it's so sad. So they go on this adventure in the dark together they bring back the light. Have I spoiled it there? But yes, they go on this adventure to bring back the light and to overcome the darkness and the scary darkness.
I was going to say, what's the enemy?
It takes a form. It's a huge crow. It's really, really good and so heartfelt. It's
a bit like a good old fashioned horror film, with the lights and stuff, but done in a cutesy style. Well, it is.
It's battling against the darkness, having hope, having friendship. Oh, little Sparks and the otter.
We want the continuing adventures.
I do. I just want them to. Well, I'm sure they live happily ever after together, forever, holding hands. It's the hug at the end. Gets me every time.
I think you say it's the art, Lyndon's art, that jumps out with this.
Oh, it's
for sure.
It's beautiful with his artwork.
It is gorgeous, and a lot of it is a bit similar to yours. There's quite a lot of just silent pages, just telling a tale through the pictures. Yeah. Which is absolutely fine.
But it brings more emotion in, I think.
Well, I think that's it. You've got to remember comics are about the imagery, Yeah. The words are there to help tell a tale, but I feel the images should be doing a lot of the work.
Yeah. On certain ones. I mean, obviously, if you're doing a full adventure book with superheroes and stuff, then you'll need more words. But with this one, it talks to your soul, not your eyes. No, that's not right. It talks to your eyes and your...
And not your soul. What are you saying?
You know what I mean?
It's soulless. No, but it looks pretty. What are you saying, love? That's really mean to say about his work.
I'm not saying that. You're not listening. It talks to you inside. You don't need it all spelled out to you because the emotion comes from the page straight in.
Okay.
That's what I mean. Meanie. No, you are horrible to me. I love it. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful.
So if you see Lyndon about, go and have a nosy
Yes.
at this.
Yes, definitely.
Amongst all his other work. So, gorgeous. Right, the next one is a bit more serious.
Just a tad.
A bit more top-heavy. Guantanamo Kid, the true story of Mohammed El Garani. Sounds right. By Jerome Tubiana and Alexandra Frank. Read that blurb.
Mohammed was no more than 14 when he left his native country, Saudi Arabia, in order to study English in Pakistan. Shortly after the 9/11 attacks, he was arrested and transferred to the Guantanamo Bay US military base in Cuba. He was one of the youngest prisoners in this notoriously illegal camp and one of the few black detainees of African descent. It took 8 years for his innocence to be finally recognised.
Now, this, obviously, we knew about Guantanamo Bay, but I personally didn't look into it.
I was going to say, we
so
knew
much.
about it,
was there,
but we didn't know about it.
Because it wasn't our country, we didn't sort of, I suppose, unless you really took a notice, you didn't pay attention, really.
Well, again, it's what the media feeds you, isn't it?
Yeah, that's very true, actually. And I certainly remember the media changing its tact.
Yes.
From the start towards the end, you know.
Yeah, but it also kind of fell away from media attention a bit, I think, yeah.
So it was just a huge prison cell.
Yeah.
In Cuba that just held these people they said were guilty or involved within the 9/11.
Yeah, but they weren't tried.
There was no trial. There was nothing to prove
evidence.
This.
Yeah. They just rounded them up and put them somewhere, basically.
And it wasn't a case of rounding up, putting somewhere and looking after them.
No.
It's a case of rounding them up, as this story tells, putting them places and beating them up like an old-fashioned...
Yeah, they just were treated like nothing.
An old-fashioned prison, you know. You see them in the movies and you think, that can't really happen. But they are doing that. They're beating them up for no reason. They're torturing them for no reason.
Yeah.
Just to try and make them say things. Not that they're aware that what they're getting might not be the truth.
Yeah.
They don't care. They just want they want someone to blame.
Yes, yeah.
That's what America's or the government or the army, whoever's responsible for this, they wanted someone to finally pin the finger on.
Yeah, they wanted to, they were afraid, so they just popped them, people in one place, said these are the people that did it. Yeah.
So they just picked this kid up on the street because he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, essentially. He's as far as we know, he's done nothing wrong. He's never involved within, and he was so young as well.
14?
So even if he was guilty, he was still treated wrong because he shouldn't have been put in an adult prison for starters. He should never have been treated in any way, shape or form the way they were.
I mean, he's got bad back and broken teeth. And
he's been destroyed almost as a person. I mean, the story shows about how he sort of fought back against these guards. Eventually got to the point where he wasn't having it anymore. He wasn't going to be mistreated. He fought and he punched and he hurt people. But I think you either do that or, as it explains in the book, you just go a little bit insane, a bit mad.
You'd go completely in on yourself, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Eventually.
So it's a case of you either fight or flight.
One thing I think stood out was the loneliness felt by him because later on in the book, he gets transferred into a block where he's just on his own. Yeah. And he gets released, but he's still on his own. He finds people, but he still feels lonely because he's been away from it so long. He doesn't fit in. He gets captured he gets arrested at every point again because of what's happened. So, he never actually gets away. He's always struggling till the next part. It's horrendous. So even when he's released, it's not the end of it. No,
I mean, the art is ideal for what it tells the story perfectly fine.
Yeah. It's black and white. That's what you get.
Yeah. Simple. It does what it needs to do.
Yeah. They've got to get a lot of information in there. There's a lot of writing in there.
It's interesting as well. Just, there's guards there who admitted, we know you're innocent, but we're just doing our job sort of thing.
Are they doing it? It's one of those big things, isn't it? You could look at that throughout every world war and all the rest of it.
Oh, you could.
Are they doing their job or are they,
Especially when it's not a war zone.
Exactly.
We're not in a war.
Well,
war of terror, but not, I don't know.
It's a hard one, but that shows how wrong the whole thing was.
And I think if you like me personally, I won't sit and read newspapers. I won't, but this tells me what I need to know about what went on over there.
Yeah.
And sort of it makes you think about America again, doesn't it? You know, I mean, you look what's going on now with the wall being built, you know, all these illegal Mexicans. Damn you, Mexicans.
Right, yes.
Well, it just seems to, they're just isolating themselves, you know.
Yes.
And that's what they've done there. They've taken foreigners and, like, treat you like crap.
Yeah.
You know, our own prisoners, we wouldn't treat our own Americans that way.
Yeah.
But you're nobodies. You're going to be...
it's...
We're going to break all the international laws.
Yes, yeah, that's it, isn't it? It's a hard, it's a hard read, and it scares you, doesn't it? Really,
it does. That this can just happen. That you know, effectively, you could just be taken off the street. Yeah, that's basically what it's saying. I mean, we've got more protection here than they have in his country, but still, it should be innocent until proven guilty. And that's the other thing. Even if they were guilty people,
you still don't treat them like that.
You don't treat them like a full stop. But until they're proven guilty, they you don't do that.
No.
It's wrong on every single side.
And I think that's, again, the black and white drawings from that is that stark right and wrong kind of thing. I think, like you say, it's impactful and it brings it home. Yeah.
So definitely, if you've even got a slight interest in what went on, you know, it's worth reading. Yeah. Just to understand how horrific it was. It's sad.
Yeah.
Sad.
Awful.
Anyway. Right, let's move on to more happy stuff.
Yes, please.
So Tim's been on. We had a chat with him talking about the Breakthrough Initiative. So we won't talk anymore. We'll let him tell you all about that. But if you are slightly tempted from when this comes out, you've got about 15 days roughly to apply. So get the applications in as soon as and give it a go.
Yeah, definitely.
Room for one lawgiver, please.
Judge Dredd. Or is it just Dredd? Fancy seeing you here.
Catwoman, you also here for the Comic Art Festival or a stint in the ISO cubes?
Of course. I love to see my makers in action. Watch it, Greenie.
Careful, Hulk. In this town we have a saying. Once is a coincidence, twice is a booking offence.
I think he booked the events on the website.
Huh?
comicartfestival.com. It's got all the perfect information about the event.
Yeah, so's my fist. Drock, I'm out of here. Not standing around with those 4 tortoises that have just entered the building. Cowabunga, dude!
Find out all about the Lakes International Comic Art Festival and booking information at www.comicartfestival.com.
We have with us Tim Pilcher. Thank you for coming on, Tim.
Oh, thanks for inviting me.
So before we get on to the reason why you're here, just tell us a little bit about yourself, the past, your history within the comics world.
Oh, blimey. God, where do you start? I guess I've been working in comics for about 30 years, something like that. Yeah, I guess it's quite scary when you think about it like that.
And you're only 30 years old, right? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. One, you know. I started working in a comic shop, like a lot of people do. I worked at Comic Showcase in London. And worked there for about 4.5 years. And I was just really lucky as in terms of kind of comic shops, it seemed to be the one where all the professionals seemed to gather. So you would get on a Thursday, which used to be New Comic Book Day. It wasn't a Wednesday, it used to be a Thursday. Mm-hmm. You'd get the likes of people like Dave Gibbons and Brian Bolland and Mick McMahon and Neil Gaiman and Dave McKean popping in and hanging out in the shop. And it became kind of like a little bit of a clubhouse for all of these incredibly amazing creators. And a lot of them, obviously the ones I just mentioned there had made their names in 2000 AD and stuff. But, people like Neil was just kind of kicking out and starting to take off. I think he just had Black Orchid come out from DC, and he was doing, he had Violent Cases that had just come out. So he was just kind of like starting to peak, and, he'd bring in copies of Sandman scripts, and well, not the scripts, but the pencils that had been drawn up at that time. So I spent about 4.5 years working there, and then I was very lucky enough to meet Art Young, who at the time was setting up a London office for Vertigo Comics.
Okay.
So he was kind of like sort of co-founder along with Karen Berger of Vertigo. He'd used to work for Karen as a DC editor, but left to set up a line of his own comics at Disney. But that fell through. So he kind of brought all the projects he had back to DC, and that, along with what Karen was developing as an ongoing series, formed the core of the first launch of Vertigo. But he really enjoyed, he was living in LA at the time and didn't really want to go back to New York. And because there were so many kind of British creators working, we managed to convince them to be the kind of UK liaison and set up an office in the Warner Brothers building in Soho.
Superb.
So, so he invited, well, he was looking for an assistant to work for. And his thing was that he didn't really want to take someone who had already learned the ropes from another publisher, and then they were going to have to kind of unlearn everything and then learn it his way. He just would rather teach someone from scratch. So I was just very lucky to be in the right place at the right time, and got the job. And so worked as assistant editor there for about 2.5 years, I think it was, at Vertigo.
Nice.
So that was great. We worked on some really interesting titles like Kill Your Boyfriend and The Mystery Play, and Face is one of my favourites. That was Peter Milligan and Duncan Fegredo. I worked on the last half of Enigma. I didn't get any credit on that because I was on my probation. And yeah, it was really, I learned so much about comics. I have to give that to Art. I mean, that's where I got most of I learned all my history working in the comic shop, but I learned all my practical how-to stuff working at Vertigo.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then after that, I kind of moved into book publishing for a while, and worked for Penguin Children's Books. Mm-hmm. Worked there for about a year, then moved over to Dorling Kindersley, and worked there for about 5.5 years. And then moved down to the south coast by that time. I was living in Brighton, so was getting a bit bored of commuting up to London. So I managed to find a publisher in Lewes, which is a small town just outside of Brighton. And that was Ilex Press, and became sort of commissioning editor. And so obviously being a comics fan and aficionado, I kind of ended up doing lots and lots of comics projects. So we did a big book about Alan Moore called Alan Moore Storyteller, which was written by Gary Spencer Millage. We did one on Neil Gaiman, written by Hayley Campbell, and I commissioned The Art of Osama Tezuka by Helen McCarthy, which won a Harvey, which was nice.
Excellent.
Oh, well done, yeah.
So all of that time, I was also kind of writing books as well. So I've written quite a few books about comics. So again, sort of with other people like Brad Brooks, we co-wrote. Back in 2005, we did The Essential Guide to World Comics, which was really a bit ahead of its time. It was before kind of the internet was really taking off and people were loading up all this information. So it was all information about how the comics industries around the world had developed, that no one really knew about. We had to do a lot of digging around and research on that, and a lot of old school research, like sifting through books, which I don't think people do that much of these days. It's all online, but at that time it wasn't. So, and it was just really interesting to see how the similarities were, from you would discover things like in India, one of the biggest comics was Lee Falk's The Phantom. Yeah, that was also like the biggest comic in Australia and the biggest comic in Sweden. So there's these kind of weird kind of connections just which happened purely through licensing and things like that. But there were these cross-cultural references that we started to see kind of popping up all over the place. So that was kind of fun. And then, I've written books on the history of erotic comics. And then the last book I just did with Dave Gibbons, which was How Comics Work, which is a kind of dissection. It's kind of like Dave's approach on how he produces comics. And that got nominated for an Eisner last year, which was very nice.
Yeah.
Got to be proud of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, it was good. Yeah, it would have been better if we'd won, of course. It's kind of everything. It just means there's something to aim for now, you see. And then for 4 years, I kind of came back after ILAX, came back to comics and ran Humanoids UK operations for 4 years. Handling all of their distribution and sales in the UK, and marketing, but also editing a lot of the books as well. So, working with people like Milo Manara and Jodorowsky and people like that. So, yeah, very, very exciting stuff.
And you've since become co-owner of Soaring Penguin Press.
Indeed, yes. So that just happened at the end of last year.
Yeah, one of Nikki's favourite books, our favourite books, Breaks, is published by you guys, which obviously we love. We keep hassling her for the second lot.
I was going to say that Emma is pretty much kind of finishing off volume 2 now, and so that will be out next year. So beginning of next year, we'll have Breaks 2.
Next year.
Next year, yeah, hang in there. It'll be worth it.
We're refusing to read them.
Yeah, I won't read them until I get the
website because we want the book. We want it physically in our hands.
Oh, excellent. That's what we like to hear.
So how have you found that so far?
Great. There's a lot of stuff there, and it's really amazing when you're doing kind of publishing. It's always interesting when you work for a publisher. You kind of you don't really get a say-so on what you publish very often. You can suggest things and everything, but obviously it's the company owners that decide. So it's really nice that sort of John and I can, we have a deal that we both have to like something. So, if one of us doesn't, then, it's not going to happen. So we both have to agree on it, which is nice, but it does mean that, we can both get behind something. But I mean, it's just staggering how much good stuff is out there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, and it's really difficult to kind of sift through, and, we're a medium-sized company. We're fairly, looking to grow and stuff. But, there is only so many books you can publish in a year. Just otherwise you overstretch yourself. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, we've got some really interesting, exciting stuff lined up for next year. But this year, we're doing a series by Ryan Howe called Daisy Blackwood, Pilot for Hire. And there's 6 books so far in the series. We've published the first one, which is The Cursed Island, and the next one's going to be coming out soon is The Stolen Socialite. And they're just really great, rip-roaring, kind of like pulpy adventure type stories. And she's a really brilliant character. He writes female characters excellently, and just his pacing and rhythm, sometimes you get people who tell a story and then it slows down when they do a bit of exposition, and it's kind of, you're keeping the reader up to date with what's going on. Mm-hmm. But he manages to do that effortlessly. So you're completely up to date with the story, but it never kind of slows down at any point. It just keeps that momentum all the way through. And it's got, to my mind, it's got that really nice light touch, like a lot of Dave Stevens's The Rocketeer. So it's kind of fun, and it's not dark and gritty and all that kind of stuff, but, there's obviously serious bits in it, but, it's just a great bit of exciting adventure story, really.
There's room for that. Definitely room for that in this world.
That sounds right up my street.
Exactly. Something, let's lighten the tone a little bit. It'll be quite nice. But then we have, of course, coming out the end of the year, to lower the tone. Well, not lower the tone. Oh no, if they're listening to this, to darken the tone is, we've got David Hine and Mark Stafford's The Bad Bad Place, which is what we've been serializing in our anthology meanwhile. And that's all going to be collected and gathered into one volume and coming out around about November-ish time. And it's kind of a companion piece to the book they brought out from Self-Made Hero called Lip Hook. And it purely only in kind of mood or tone. They've got this thing that they call rural unease, which kind of taps into that whole kind of folk horror sort of movement, really. So if you're a fan of like The Wicker Man or any of those kind of stories, it's kind of like perfect for that. So it's very, very dark and sort of like a slightly unsettling story, but beautifully drawn by Mark. I mean, he's just absolutely brilliant. And I've been a huge fan of David Hines since he brought out A Strange Embrace way back in the days of Tundra. So it definitely is in keeping with that sort of tone and mood, which is, it's great stuff. So yeah, we have and of course we'll have Meanwhile still coming out as an anthology that's showcasing lots of different creators, and lots of other stuff. So, yeah, we try and keep quite a diverse range of material. Of course, always looking out for different things. I was just out at the Brussels Book Fair and just having a look at what's happening in the Francophone market, and there's just so much good stuff out there. It's a bit overwhelming, actually. Can't keep up with it all.
that leads us nicely then to new creators and breakthrough. So tell us a bit about the projects that you're running with the Comic Art Festival.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting thing. I mean, we were chatting away with I met the Lakes ladies when the ladies of the Lakes, yeah. When we were out in San Diego last year. And we were just kind of chatting about this. And I'd done a previous project quite a few years ago, or a couple of projects, which was Brighton the graphic novel. And that was with a community publisher called Queen's Park Books. And their thing was all about getting, the community participating. So all of the creators had to come from or around the Brighton area. And it was a graphic novel history telling 300 years of the history of the city with unusual tales. So they might be tales that were based on true facts, but maybe with a little bit of a fictional spin. And so myself and Paul Collicott were the two mentors. So I mentored the writers and Paul mentored the artists. And we kind of got them into teams. So there were 16 people in all. So there was 8 teams. And we got them to work together. And some of them had done illustration before, and maybe some of them had done a little bit of writing before, but most of them hadn't actually done comics before. So we trained them up over that 18-month period and got them to produce their own kind of story in this anthology. And it turned out to be the best-selling book, I think, in Queen's Park Books history, in 45-year history. It just kind of really took off because no one had done something like that before. So we then did it again with Brighton's Graphic War to commemorate the World War I 100th the centenary. And there we were doing it with slightly younger creators, so they were 15 to 25-year-olds. And again, they produced some amazing kind of work. And so it was kind of really talking about that and just going like, well, this is great. It's a model that obviously works, and kind of like helps nurture talent. But, so far it's just been within the Brighton area, and it just made more sense to say, well, let's take this kind of nationwide and see what we can do in terms of giving people a chance to perhaps learn the skills, learn the abilities and the talents, and what is needed to work in comics, and hopefully nurture some creators for tomorrow.
So who can get involved in this then?
Anyone. That's the joy. Well, I say anyone. It's what we're saying is any UK citizen over the age of 18 who fancies a go at trying to create comics. What we're looking for is really that kind of diversity from right across. So whether it's someone living in a village in Cornwall or in Newcastle or Edinburgh, or kind of like in a sort of a small town, or a big city, or in the countryside. We're looking for all the kind of voices that don't often get represented within comics. So people with sort of mental health issues, disabilities, BAME kind of community, rural communities, pensioners, working class, people that, perhaps are not getting their voices heard in the media as much as they probably should. And what we're really interested in is kind of getting that idea of what's it like to be a person or a British citizen today living in the UK, and so for us, that's kind of like the crucial thing is getting that diversity of voices, because that's going to show the diversity of the country. I mean, someone's experience of being, a school teacher in Norwich compared to someone who's a bus driver in Bristol are going to be completely different. And so, that's the thing that I really love about Britain is that kind of real mixture. So it's a chance to really give people a go at doing comics and that they don't even have to have been doing their own kind of like, sort of mini comics for themselves or anything like that, because obviously we're going to be training them up completely. So even if they've got like just the hint of creativity in them, like they do a bit of painting, or maybe they've done a little bit of writing or something like that, and they want to have a go. That's all it takes really is looking for them to, want to have a go, and put themselves up for it, because, as I said, they'll be nurtured all the way through it, and we're going to have comics professionals coming along and doing sort of guest lectures. And the plan we'll have over that period is 3 kind of working workshop weekends, where we'll get everyone together so that they can then feed ideas off of each other, get to meet each other and bounce those ideas, but also get to talk to real comics professionals about what's it like working in the industry, what sort of skills do you need, and as well as the technical stuff. So yeah, it's going to be quite a spectacular thing, I think. If it all comes together, it should be really good.
So if someone wants to apply, what do they need to show? As in, what do they need to send to you in regards to whether it be paintings, drawings, writing? Is there a certain amount or a certain quality? Or
well, we're looking for really enough material to kind of get a guide through. So it depends on what they want to submit. So it could be something like a short story. It could be some poetry. It could be some photos of a vase they've made. Just anything that we can see. So we get a taste of what they're kind of creating, what they like to create. I mean, obviously that's not going to beholden what they actually do in the comics, but it just gives us a flavour of what sort of stuff they like to do. And that will really help. And they can go to the comicartfestival.com website. And if they go to comicartfestival.com/project/breakthrough, there's a couple of application forms that they can download from there. And if they fill those in, they can either email them back to us or stick stuff in the post. But, whatever way they want to kind of communicate, that's absolutely fine. Obviously we can't return anything that's sent, so don't send anything that's precious or, like a giant Dave McKean kind of, thing that, because we won't be able to return it, unfortunately. So don't send originals, just, photos or pictures or, photocopies is absolutely fine. Just so we can see, what you like to do creatively. That will help massively. But yeah, I mean, absolutely, it is, as I said, it's open to anyone over the age of 18. There's no other stipulation other than that, apart from, the travel and all the kind of costs, will be paid for. So there won't be kind of, any or too many expenses. It should be all travel and accommodation for the workshops, and hopefully for some of the materials will all be covered. Mm-hmm. So it's really, people shouldn't feel like, oh, I can't afford to do that or something like that, because we really do want to hear from all walks of life. It's you know, it's one of those things that I think comics generally as a very desperately middle class kind of approach, and a lot of creators do come from fairly privileged kind of backgrounds, and so I would really like to get hold of some people that haven't had that opportunity. Perhaps they haven't had a chance to go to further education and do their stuff, but everyone has an urge to create. I think that's kind of like a basic human instinct. And I think that people need to create, particularly, when things are, not maybe so good or whatever. It's a way of releasing tension. It's a way of expressing themselves. And I think it's vital to human existence, in fact. Mm-hmm. So that's what we want to nurture is people that want to create. So as I should say, that all of this work, once we've completed the 18-month program, hopefully everyone will have a story in comic strip form that they've completed, and then that will be collected into a complete sort of graphic novel anthology, which Soaring Penguin Press will publish, and that will go around and be distributed across the country, and hopefully act as a platform or as a portfolio piece for them to go on and have a further career within comics. So that's the ultimate incentive for doing this. Is that first step on a ladder, which perhaps they wouldn't have ever had the chance to get otherwise. Which, if you were to go through a university or something, it would cost you however much money to get to a point of printing something. It's this is the thing, and it's very interesting. Obviously, a course like that could take anything between 2 and 4 years to do a university course, and then you're going to be possibly £9,000-10,000 in debt, and doing that. And that's a real limitation for a lot of people. And it really puts off a lot of people actually going into further education. So here's the chance for people to embrace that and do it in a slightly more compressed period of time. But they will get to talk to the real professionals who are actually doing this at the coalface of comics. And get that real advice and sort of insider tips, which you probably wouldn't always get at every kind of course. And of course, to top all of that, you get a free weekend at the Lakes 2020. Yeah, of course there is that. There you go. Yeah, hopefully we'll be doing an exhibition of the artwork as well at the festival. So, yes, so that will be in next year. We'll have an exhibition alongside the launch of the book. Well, hopefully we can follow the process. Yes. Going through. Maybe absolutely. Chat to some applicants as they go through the whole process. That'd be really interesting to see how they evolve and change throughout those. Yeah, well, that's always the thing. Is and what's always joyful, you see, about when you get people who have never really necessarily sort of grown up with comics and just kind of vaguely aware of it, or maybe they read them as a kid and then never picked them up again, as they bring so much new ideas, and because they don't have any idea of what the rules are, so they feel completely free to break them, and they can come with kind of like real fresh pair of eyes and doing something that's totally left of field. And so, you often get surprised by what people do, and you think, wow, I've never thought of that, just because, their way of thinking has not been, formed by years of reading comics, perhaps. That's the joy of it is letting people find their voices and doing it. So I would say that the deadline for the applications is not long. So you've got sort of just under a month now. So it's the 29th of March, Friday the 29th of March at midnight is the kind of cut-off for applications. So we're already starting to see applications coming in, which is lovely. But yes, do spread the word to anyone you know, because we would love to hear from everybody, really.
Yeah, no, certainly. We'll keep pushing it ourselves. And we look forward to the end result. It's exciting.
Yes, very exciting.
Yeah.
Well, you see, the joy of it is, you see, we have no idea where we're going to be going with this.
No.
I mean, it really is. It's going to be them driving the narrative and deciding how we do this. You know, it was interesting, within the Brighton the graphic novel, we discovered that sort of all of the stories started kind of bleeding into each other, and people were talking about similar things. So there was started to be this kind of interconnectivity with the stories. Like, it may just be like a little character in the background somewhere or something like that. So although it was chronological, people were kind of sparking ideas off of each other. So the same thing might happen again on Breakthrough. It could be that we end up with an ongoing narrative that flows through the entire book, or it might be something completely different. But we'll know in 18 months.
Excellent. Exciting. Thank you so much, Tim.
No problem. Well, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
How do? Welcome to the second part of a special Mutter Downs episode celebrating 2 years of the Lakes International Comic Arts Festival podcast. I'm Pete Taylor. I'm a small press comics creator and illustrator. Online I trade as This Man This Pete, and I'm yakking to
Mike Williams, general fanboy, neckbeard, and international man of mystery.
Now, Mike, these Mutter Downs, we've stumbled across a format. Across the many hours we've spent yakking about comics, and it was discovered when we debated Marvel versus DC, and we've turned that now into a format to put some sort of structure to our ramblings, where we've now decided to work out which is the mightier genre, sword or sorcery. So we've been discussing, in the last episode we discussed best heroic characters, best villainous characters, and best teams, which was a struggle. And today we're going to be discussing weirdest character, best adapted literary character, and best screen adaptation.
And we will be voting on which is the winner of the round using a highly sophisticated scientific scoring methodology.
A tally on my bit of paper.
Oh.
Yeah, so we're going to do 3 characters or adaptations from Sword, and then we're going to do 3 characters or adaptations of Sorcery, and at the end of that round, like you say, we'll vote on it. So, do you want to start off with your third weirdest Sword character?
Certainly. My weirdest sword character in the number 3 spot is Guts from the Berserk title. He has a sword called Dragon Slayer. The Berserk title, if you don't know, it's a mature audience dark fantasy where we have the hero Guts, one of the most horrible origin stories ever. He's born from a hanging corpse. But anyway, he's basically a mercenary, and he slays demons. He'll just walk in and slay an entire castle, small nations, but strangely enough, never a dragon. And the reason I've chosen this is basically because of the sword Dragon Slayer. It's stupidly massive.
Yeah.
Now, there's quite a few out there, but I actually, a friend's son is heavily into cosplay. So after a chat, I was looking at all these different online designs and everything that they do, and there is the actual plans online for this sword, actually properly scaled. It would actually be, it's just over 6 feet long, and it's 14 inches wide. So that's quick conversion. That's about 1.8 meters and 35 centimeters wide. And it's estimated that it would actually come in weighing at 176 kilograms. So it's basically the same size as the hero, almost. It's a two-handed sword, but at least he does have a prosthetic arm to help him sort of swing it about. But there is quite a few I looked at, and I think I chose this purely on the... as it's got some really cool artwork around it. It does look quite good. But funnily enough, when I was writing this last week, Dark Horse announced a deluxe Berserk Volume 1.
Cool.
Hard edition. So I might as well get a plug in for that for Dark Horse while we're at it. But there was a few others, and I suppose I should mention there's another manga called Trigun, where again the sword is just it's but it also doubles up. It's like the Swiss Army knife of swords as well. It's like got in there. Anyway.
So what time period is this set in then? I've not heard of Berserk, I have to say.
It's kind of just fantasy, really.
Right, but he's got a prosthetic arm as well.
Yes, I only have vague memories of it. And then again, Trigun is like a Western fantasy one. But yeah, all manga stuff. I was thinking of I might actually treat myself to the volume 1 to try and get reacquainted again. But I actually have a folder with a huge sticker of the artwork of him swinging Dragon Slayer. And I always get the feeling it was kind of like the inspiration behind, some of the big swords they have in the Final Fantasy series.
Yeah.
It's very, very similar sort of look and feel to it.
Right.
Well,
that's what I kind of thought when you mentioned that.
So that's my number 3.
Nice one. My number 3 is Blue Blade. Now, this was a character from the golden age of comics. Apparently, he appeared in one comic in 1942. But I'm not that knowledgeable about golden age comics. So the reason he's on this list was that he was a character that was revamped and brought back to life to start in the 12. Do you remember there was a 12 issue maxi series? I think it was the mid 2000s, and it was J. Michael Straczynski and Chris Weston, and it was a bunch of very old, obscure superheroes from the 40s. So characters like the Black Widow, Captain Wonder, Dynamic Man, Rockman, the Phantom Reporter. As you can imagine, golden age heroes and costumes, there's always some quirks there. There's a lot of civvies with a mask, a domino mask, and a cape. There's a lot of bare legs. I think sort of was a bit of a fashion look back then. But Blue Blade went for the bare-chested look. So he's literally just got a hat, a cloak, some very, very loose, billowy pantaloons, and some boots. So he's always got this kind of grin across his face as well. I don't think he's got any superpowers at all. So he'd launch himself into battle wearing next to nothing. He basically just looks drunk most of the time in the comics as well. So I don't know if there is an implication there that we're supposed to get. So he looks quite mentally disturbed, and a little bit worrying, really. You do worry for him. So yeah, he stands out from the group as for choosing that look, and amongst golden age superheroes, stands out for his oddly strange choice of costume. It's my number 3.
Isn't it?
Sorry?
This is Marvel, is it?
Yeah.
And the 12 was all retired Marvel Golden Age, wasn't it?
Yeah, the conceit, I think, if I remember rightly, was that they were on a mission in the Second World War and then they disappeared, and then they kind of reawaken in the modern age, and one of them has to work out what had happened. Is it the Phantom Reporter, I think? And I think there's a murder mystery element to it. I think the victim might have even been Blue Blade. I think he was murdered, and what the group was, one of the group was suspected. I remember reading it. I think I must have borrowed it someone, because I went to have a look to find it again, and I couldn't find it again. So apologies if I got any of that wrong. But the art was gorgeous. I remember being really intrigued by some of the older characters. But yeah, Blue Blade always stood out slightly as well.
And I wouldn't worry about getting anything wrong, because let's face it, so much of all of these chats is based on vague recollections.
Well, and also stretching the boundaries of sword and sorcery. You know, I mean, I had Grendel. I remember I was thinking about the last episode, and I had Grendel, and I was showing my daughter, I was telling her about it, and she said, "Oh, he sounds really cool." And I was, "Oh yeah, wait till you see him. He looks amazing." The first thing I remember thinking when I saw a picture of him was that he doesn't use a sword. He's got a very old, it's like a staff with 2-pronged blades on the end. So blade's close enough, I think, in our definition of swords. But he used, I think, an épée as Hunter Rose, who often saw him in his kind of fencing outfit. So I think I just conflated the two weapons. But yeah, don't come here for accuracy. I completely agree.
Definitely go elsewhere. Okay, on to my number 2 weirdest sword. And this is with a bit of actually a lot of affection. Gru the Wanderer.
Yeah, brilliant.
For me, Gru just feels like he's been around forever.
Yeah.
And he was, created before I was born for a start, but he just always seemed to be there in the background.
Yeah.
At the height of, he was created in the 70s, which is the height of the sword and sorcery explosion, really. And he was a direct parody of what was going on there, more so than anything else of Conan, really.
Yeah.
It's Sergio Aragonés who created, and it was edited and voiced anyway by writer Mark Evener. And it's actually one of the most successful US humour titles of all time. I'm counting it as weird because the character of Gru is just perfectly weird for me. He's just the most stupid barbarian sword swinger of all time. He just brings disaster everywhere, either misunderstanding prophecies or destroying the wrong army, accidentally killing allies. And I always remember he's got this thing about ships as well. Whenever he sets foot on one, it just sinks. Sometimes there's an explanation, sometimes not. Anyway, and I just love the fact that he's got this reputation as he wanders this generic fantasy land. Just the news of his impending arrival is enough to cause riot, panic, and entire cities to flee in his wake because they just know the accidental that he always brings. He was lucky, actually, Sergio, because I was kind of reading an article on Gru not long ago, and he was one of these people in the 70s. He kind of booked the trend, and he really fought for his rights to his own character,
right?
Which so many people didn't.
Yeah,
because it's expensive legal fights sometimes, and that's the reason, really, why it's such a sort of like ongoing character that always seems to be there. He moved from publishing house to publishing house. There was Pacific, Eclipse, Epic, Image, and Dark Horse, I assume, still has him. There was something, I think, put out originally 2017, but Dark Horse do tend to just do collected works of all the previous publishers. They're quite good like that, Dark Horse, actually. The only regretful thing so far about, as we discussed, from previous episode, of Conan coming out of Dark Horse and going to Marvel.
Mm.
The Dark Horse Conan, don't get me wrong, but I'm loving the Marvel Conan. But whilst they were both at Dark Horse, there was serious consideration given to a Conan Gru crossover. I would have liked to have seen that, but of course, I guess that's lost now, isn't it? With Marvel safely snaffling the IP back. But
well, it's funny because it does get talked about on the Wikipedia page. Because I just had a quick look while you were chatting to remind myself. Because the first thing I wanted to double check was I thought there was a connection between Gru and Usagi Yojimbo, and the fact that Stan Sakai, the writer artist of Usagi Yojimbo, he letters Gru. He's the letterer on Gru.
Okay.
So I thought, I'll double check that. And while I was there, it said at the 2007 WonderCon, the creators reveal that since 2005 they've been trying to produce a Gru Conan crossover, as both titles are published by Dark Horse. The project encountered a number of postponements, although 2 issues had been completed by the spring of 2011. The series was further delayed because of a backache suffered by Aragones. The book finally saw print in July 2014 with Aragones and writer Mark Ivanier working with artist Thomas Yates,
wow,
who drew the Conan portions of the book.
Oh, wow, I never knew it was.
Yeah.
I heard about it. It was talked about for ages.
Isn't that funny though? 2014, so it's pretty recent for how long it took.
God, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I love Sergio Aragones. One of my highlights from which festival was it? I think it wasn't last year. It was the year before.
Before, yeah.
But got walking over and shaking Sergio Aragones' hand and just saying, big fan of your work. And I mentioned one particular story that I've got a kind of autobiographical book by artists that just write stories of their lives. I think it's published by Tomorrows, and his story is about him performing as a kind of clown at a public swimming pool, and him and another lifeguard, I think, would put on sort of skits at various points. And at one point, they decided it would be funny if he wore a gorilla costume. So he actually he actually climbs up on a diving board and he jumps into the swimming pool wearing a gorilla costume. But of course, then the gorilla costume just fills up water. It's too heavy and he can't swim back up. So he has to sort of walk along the bottom of the swimming pool and then physically climb up the steps from the deep end. And I mentioned that story to him. He said, "Yeah, true story." Superb.
Excellent.
Yeah, good one, Gru. Okay, my number 2, and this was a character that I knew. I think I was reading the X-Men when this character was introduced, but I didn't quite know. It was only during the research that I found the kind of weird aspect about them that was connected to a sword. But do you remember, as Baron von Strucker? Do you remember Baron von Strucker? He was Nick Fury villain. He was one of those kind of evil, superpowered Nazi types.
Right.
He fought Nick Fury with a weapon called the Satan Claw, which I always remember Jim Steranko's run at the time. It was brilliant. But they introduced a pair of twins in the X-Men comic that were revealed to be the twin son and daughters of von Strucker. So it's Andrea and Andreas Strucker, and they formed this supervillain called Fenris. And as a result of genetic engineering, they were able to fly and generate energy blasts, but only when they were holding hands. So it's kind of a bit like North Star and Aurora. They used to do that a lot with sort of twins, didn't they? But Andreas could generate concussive force blasts, while Andrea could generate disintegration beams. And he used a sword to use as a conduit sometimes, and it shot a grappling hook and projectiles and all sorts, apparently. But his sister died. So what he did, and now we get to the weird bit, he wrapped his sword's hilt with some of her skin so that he could release powerful concussive blasts through the sword. So he kind of got round the holding hands by basically using a bit of his sister's skin as some sort of weird sword grip. So when I read that, I thought, right, that's definitely going in the weird swordsman column. There was a later story where the cloned sister, he ends up taking some of his skin off his arm and giving it to her at one point in the story as well. And it's like,
okay, DIY skin grafting.
Oh,
right.
Gross.
They don't ring a bell to me at all. Actually, I'm going to have to.
It was.
Sit here with my Marvel and DC encyclopedias. Actually, I'm sure that would be helpful to the podcast.
They didn't get used. It was the John Romita part of the run, I think. The Claremont John Romita run. I think it was. It might have been like when Magneto was on trial or something. I remember them appearing, but I had no idea of this whole side of them. I think they came back in Thunderbolts recently, and there was a whole load of weirdness ensued when they were back in some version of Thunderbolts. But
right,
weird.
Right, so my number one weirdest sword, and this is even more out of affection, and it's Saxon from Mouseguard.
Cool.
I'm sure it counts as weird because it's a mouse. That's got to count for something. I just absolutely love Mouseguard. Writer, artist David Peterson. He is one of those artists I really admire, and he's well worth a follow on Twitter because he does so much sort of you can see what he's developing and how, and the creative process. He shares everything with fans.
Brilliant.
But for those not knowing what Mouseguard is, I'm going to be brief on this purely because I think Mouseguard deserves a 101 from me.
Yeah,
I think.
Brilliant.
Yeah. It's a medieval sort of non-magical setting of sentient mice who protect their realm as a brotherhood, and this is the Mouse Guard. Saxon's the bravest, greatest sword of them all, but he's got quite a cool character, and he solves everything with a sword. He doesn't see any other way. If he can't be hit to solve the problem, he's struggling a little bit. But the artwork is just gorgeous, and it's one of those where the books as well, they are beautifully hardbacked bound books. That's the only way you get them, and it's one of those few sort of comics where it's like you've got the graphic novel, but it just feels sumptuous in your hands, and it just instantly draws you in.
Yeah.
And that's the thing for me, is that yes, it's mice, but it's done completely seriously. You get involved.
Yeah. And
being mice, if they come across a snake is a proper mighty foe. It's in scale to the mice. So it's the equivalent of us coming across a dragon.
Yeah.
But because everything's real and it's all real animal, it just draws you in. It's Alison that's actually got the full collection of Mouseguard. I think I've mentioned Mouseguard before now, actually, on Mike's Wutterings, with the fact that he did actually do some free comic book day.
That's right.
And they were still hardbacked.
Cool.
There were many little hardback volumes. I just thought, wow.
Yeah.
They were in the way Free Comic Book Day works is that the comic book store buys them themselves. It costs
Yeah.
them. But there's different tiers, isn't there? And there's the bronze, silver, and gold tiers.
That's right. Yeah, according to the sort of level of the publisher, isn't it?
Yeah, it's also to do slightly with the expense, I think, as well.
Yeah.
And these were expensive, and they were quite hard to get hold of, actually.
Mm.
So every time one's come out, we've been lucky enough to be there on Free Comic Book Day to grab it.
Brilliant.
So, yeah, I say it's realistic and it's not cutesy, but Saxon is cute. I don't care what anyone says. One of the nice things as well, if you do follow David on Twitter, he's got a very large female crafting following.
Right.
And you get all sorts of the fans, as opposed to artwork, which you get a lot of fan artwork on things.
Yeah.
What you tend to get with Mouse Guard is you tend to get like stuffed toy versions of the characters.
Fan plush.
Needle felting is
Right.
quite popular. There's crochet ones I've seen. And again, David himself, there's a free download. They're like A4 sheets of paper, but they're really cleverly done. They're cardboard 3D models of the characters. Incredibly cute, actually, to make.
Yes.
But I don't know why. It's just one of those little weird flavours of his particular style of fans, I think.
Yeah, that's great. I went down a papercraft. I bought a book for just full of these amazing. They were kind of like the paper equivalent of vinyl toys. Just really great, very innovative, and it was paper. It was called Paper Monsters, I think, or something like that. You can always grab me with a monster. So I wondered, can you do it? So I fell down a bit of a kind of a papercraft hole for a while, just trying to work out how it was done and working out my own versions of things. And it was great fun. For a while, you start off basic with a basic box, and then you start getting a little more sophisticated with your bends and your tabs and stuff. But that sounds fab. It's one of those books actually that you would describe as illuminated, isn't it? It's not an illustrated book. It's illuminated. It's got that kind of glow to it. I think it's a good way to describe it.
It can't, yeah. I just, it's always one of those for me. It's one of those treat readings. Occasionally we do nights where we just go into the conservatory. All electronic media is switched off, and we just do a bit of a comic reading session, just the two of us, with the fairy lights on, basically. And that is one of my favourites to sit with and just really drawn in. So I'm really looking forward to doing a complete butter down on that.
Awesome. Okay, my number one weird character. I mean, it's a character that's close to my heart. Talking of monsters, there have been lots of different versions of this particular monster, but one version that got it onto the sword column of my list, and that is Frankenstein. Now, this version is definitely Frankenstein as opposed to Frankenstein's monster, because it is pointed out in the comic that he has taken the name of his creator. It's partly, I think, to stop, the obvious letters and corrections that always follow any Frankenstein story. But this is the version. It's DC's modern day version of Frankenstein, created by Grant Morrison and Doug Mahnke, Doug Mahnke, in 2005, which was in the Seven Soldiers of Victory event. It started with a special, oversized part one, and then introduced 7 different miniseries of 4 issues each, featuring various DC comic characters. Some of them, no, they were all, I think some of them were, most of them were existing. I think Frankenstein was a kind of revamp. Had Mr. Miracle, Clarion the Witch Boy, Zatanna, I think Bulleteer, The Shining Knight, and The Guardian. and they all had various different sort of slight twists and revamps that he'd put on them. And unbeknownst almost to the lead characters in these comics themselves, the story was intertwined and ended up having connections to each other that was then resolved at the end. So it was a nice conceit to the whole thing. But during this, we got a Frankenstein character, this new Frankenstein character, and he's armed with a 3-foot-long sword, which he claimed was once belonged to the Archangel Michael. He's got a great look. He's kind of got it's almost like a sort of Napoleonic kind of jacket that he wears. He's got a steam gun. He's got an ex-wife called the Bride that has an updated kind of Elsa Lanchester look. She's got 4 arms, and they end up working in a new ongoing series for an organisation called Shade. And his last title, I think, was Frankenstein, Agent of Shade. He was briefly in Justice League Dark, and great visual to him. It was nice that he was kind of operating in modern day, but a lot of the stories had callbacks to sort of like the 1800s. Introduced really well in Seven Soldiers and still in use. I think he was in Superman not too long ago. So it's nice to have a version of Superman which fits with, your current roster, and he fits in really well. He's great. So that's my number one weird swordsman, the latest DC Frankenstein.
I think I may have seen him in Justice League Dark stuff.
Yeah.
But again, my DC is limited, I have to admit. I lose track a lot of the main events and stuff in the storylines, but no, so that's a definite in the weird category.
Oh, he's brilliant. He's so cool. Okay, so that's the swords done.
On to the sorcery?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll start with my number 3. Okay. My choices for the weirdest sorcery. I did struggle with these. So, unlike when I did swords, I had genuine reasons to say weird. I've kind of my 3 as weird that I love, weird that is just naff, and weird that it's every shade of wrong.
Cool.
So I'm starting with weird that I love. Okay. And that's Hannah from the Rat Queens.
Oh, okay.
Right. So the Rat Queens. It's not a parody. Or a pastiche. It's more. It's more of a love letter to Dungeons and Dragons. It is your classic adventurer troupe in a classic fantasy setting, but it's very, very Dungeons and Dragons in the tropes that it does make fun of. But it's just a wicked and very adult sense of humour. And when I say that, I mean it's genuinely funny. There are bits that actually make you snort. But Hannah is basically, she takes up the wizard slot of the adventuring party. She's actually a rockabilly elf mage. I mean, they're all wonderfully distinct characters. I know that everyone's favourite character is Smidge. It's the Smidgen Thief, who is just basically a drug-addled mushroom tripper. But Hannah really comes into her own, and it's just the whole rockabilly makeup of her character that's never mentioned that she's taken and accepted. She's nominally good in a D&D sense, of alignment in what is basically just a mercenary band, but quite obviously isn't. That's kind of like, I suppose, when you first start reading, she comes across as good, but she's obviously struggling with being good.
To remain good, yeah.
I can't go much more into that because it is a bit of a spoiler. But I have to say, Rat Queens will be getting a full 101 in a future Mike's Mutterings as well. It's definitely a while. It's superb, and the entire all the comic readers in the family love it. It's one of those where we just keep buying each other the next volume for Christmas, birthdays, whatever, and everyone is happy with that. So we must have bought we've probably got the complete collection about 4 or 5 times over, all of it. But we don't care. It's one of those that's good enough to make sure you have your own version.
Yeah, I have read. I don't think I've read the first trade. I think I read the first maybe 3 singles, and I really enjoyed. And I don't know why it dropped off. I think it just sometimes if you're not, it wasn't on my list. So I think I was just buying it off the shelf, and then I think it's the hardest one.
Well, in the run.
Sorry?
There was a pause in the run as well. It's got a bit of a funny history, a bit of controversy.
Yeah, one of the creators, isn't it? I remember reading about that.
It's the first artist. He was. I'm going to spoil my own Mike's Mutterings now. I was going to go into this, but I haven't actually done the research for it. This is from memory, so hopefully I'm not being libelous. He was. I think he was guilty of domestic abuse.
Oh, okay.
It's not taken very well by the comics community.
Yeah.
So it was a reboot of the series and a few other things. So.
That's right. Yeah, I remember reading something.
I have any.
But yeah, great characters. It was, and I remember thinking it was really funny. Yeah, the dialogue was fantastic. My number 3, Weird Sorcery. It's not a character that I know particularly well. I know there's been a recent iteration in the DC TV universe, but I've not seen this. I'm more familiar with, I think, probably the Silver Age versions of his tales, which I remember being drawn by Joe Kubert, and this is Ragman. Ragman.
Yes.
He's got a very old school origin in the sense that his father's a tailor who's getting bothered by some local ne'er-do-wells, I think protection racket, I think. And he's got 3 friends that he plays chess with in the shop who happen to be there when these protection guys are visiting. And they, if I remember, there have been various versions on it, but the one I remember was that the father and the 3 friends end up getting killed by these protection racket guys, and the tailor's son comes home and he finds a costume made from rags that his dad has made him for Halloween. I think it's one of those strange coincidences. And the costume kind of gets haunted by the father and the 3 men, and the 3 men he then takes on the attributes of these 3 particular individuals who were killed. One, and would you believe it, one was a circus strongman, one was a heavyweight boxer, and the last one was a world-class acrobat. So,
what are
his chances?
Rather than a hairdresser and a telemarketer, Anna.
And those essentially become his powers, and he dresses up in this. I think he's called the Tata Medallion of Crime. I seem to remember his stories being in the backup of those big Batman collections. You used to be able to get like the 100-page Giants or something like that. I'm sure there's a kind of Batman family side to him. I know he's been brought back, and I think the connection with his costume nowadays is that each rag on his costume represents a corrupted soul, and he can call on the powers of each soul. And I think the powers have become more sorcerous, and he's used, I think, nowadays in more things like Justice League Dark, and he was in Shadow Pact, I think, who we mentioned in the last episode. But yeah, strange, just a strange concept, really.
Yeah.
So weird sorceress hero Ragman.
Nicely fitting in the weird. You managed to do it properly, unlike me. Okay. Right, my second weirdest sorcery character, and this comes under the subtitle of Weird Naff, is Winston Churchill.
Oh.
You are going to have to bear with me for this one.
I can't wait to hear this origin.
Okay.
A haunted cigar.
Paradox was a 2010 graphic novel from Christus Gage, an artist, Louis Henrique Ribeiro. And it's all about a parallel dimension version of Earth where magic runs everything. And people scoff at the very idea of science and don't believe in science. So we basically have this Sean Null, who's this sort of typical hard-faced cop, and he has to investigate a bizarre series of murders. But the catch of this is the murders could only have been committed dun, 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 by science. That's the concept, okay?
Nice.
So he teams up with basically, I guess it's like a ridiculed cult of people who believe in science. And one of these people is the prominent sorcerer, the 130-year-old Winston Churchill.
Cool.
So it basically unravels, and the plot is that there's basically the possibility of both our world of science and their world of magic being destroyed. And the cop basically travels between, he actually enters our world and stuff. Mm-hmm. Now, I should say, I kind of stumbled on this, really by accident, by regrettably watching a TV movie adaptation of it.
Oh, okay.
Which stars Kevin Sorbo. I'm not sure if you know the name.
Yeah. Hercules?
He's the master of straight-to-DVD sets of sorcery films. And he did Hercules, didn't he? He was probably
That's right.
the most...
That's what yeah.
It's probably a bit unfair, actually, because he's done the odd film actually I quite like him in. Yeah, so that's kind of the quality aspect of it. We're looking at Churchill himself. He does almost nothing really. He ends up getting shot, and then he can't use his magic from that point onwards due to the iron nature of the bullet that's lodged in him. So he's kind of weird but useless as well. I was looking up because I was trying to. It took me a while to figure out. I could not remember the name of this, and I ended up going via IMDb to remember the name of the comic. So find the film, and I've just got to read these out. These are the user review. These are the reviews for the film of Paradox, and it just sums up both the film and the comic book perfectly. Interesting plot in a bad movie. Second one was, loved the concept, everything else stank. Great concept, very poorly executed. Poor writing, and my favourite, they should have conjured up a better script. Final one was, a good entertaining Kevin Sorbo flick.
Oh, bless.
All those things are true.
Oh, from Kevin Sorbo fan 101. Oh, brilliant. It is a good concept, though, isn't it?
It is. It sounds fantastic, but yeah, it was just done badly.
Oh, that's a shame. Well, I think this is neither this was neither a good concept or done well, really. I mean, considering some of the creators that was involved. This is weird in the ridiculous sense. My number 2. This is a supervillain from West Coast Avengers in the mid 80s, who was called Master Pandemonium. Does that ring a bell?
It should do, because
do you know what?
Of Coast in the 80s, and I've probably come across him.
I think the visuals involved with this guy is going to trigger it when I get to the point that I think everyone's going to have some remembrance of the guy. His real name was Martin Preston, and he was a Hollywood A-lister specialising in horror films. And he has a car crash in which his arm is severed. Somehow, he manages to summon Mephisto, who, as we know, is the devil, the Lucifer of the Marvel Universe. He manages to summon him with his wailings. And Mephisto, in turn, summons a demon and instantly rips its arm off. And he grafts the arm instantaneously, using magic, to Preston's stump. And then he thinks, obviously, to himself, oh, what the hell? So he rips Preston's other limbs off and replaces those with demon parts too. So now this A-list Hollywood actor has got the limbs of demons. And this has given him the ability to turn all of his limbs into demons who can fight for him. Or basically, his arm itself becomes a demon. Now, this takes an even worse and more bizarre turn when there's a storyline that involves him tracking down his soul, which has been split into 5 pieces. He finds out that 2 pieces of his soul are actually the twin children of Scarlet Witch and the Vision. Now, he manages to kidnap them, absorb them, and then he manifests them as 2 baby demon arm things. So in the comic story, he's got his demonic...
Yeah.
He's got his fairly generic demon supervillain costume. So he's got a kind of mask that looks horned. He's got big bushy beard. He's got some sort of long, dark hair. There's lots of red, black. I think he's got it's not even a pentagram. I think it's just an upside down star on his front. And then on his arms, he has 2 babies instead of hands, which, because he's manifested them and he has powers over demons, at some point in the story, they start to look more demonic. I think they end up being set on fire. It's pretty hilarious, yet horrific at the same time, and ridiculous. Eventually, it's left for Agatha Harkness to work out that Wanda has had a hysterical pregnancy, and she unconsciously summoned 2 souls, which she hexed into embryos into her womb. The usual use of hex, meaning fill in with whatever thing you think they mean by this word. And that became, I think, one of the first nails, one more nail in that ridiculous trail of crazy things that happened to the Scarlet Witch in her comic career. So yet another one was, that she even had children with a synthezoid, and then this was what was the storyline that got rid of them, but with this crazy villain called Master Pandemonium. I take it you've looked him up in the meantime.
Yeah, I think Stephanie made a groan noise before you described what he looked like, because I looked him up and I instantly remember the arms. Yeah, that just shows what the power of the human mind is to forget things that it doesn't want to remember. I I was a fan of Scarlet Witch, and yeah, I do remember that storyline. It's ridiculous.
It was, wasn't it? I mean, and it was a crazy storyline, and yeah, the visuals are not good. Right, so that's your number one of Sorceress, Weird Sorcerer.
Okay, apologies for this one up front, but it's got to be said. This is my every shade of wrong and a few in between category. Right, and this is Extrano. This is a character DC wishes it could erase from history, and really needs to. So, okay, late 80s, a lot of stuff went on, but still, there is no excuse for Extrano. Basically, it was DC's attempt, I think, to be like a Doctor Strange parody.
Right.
But the whole concept was just so wrong. I should say at this point, I've never read it, but he comes up in articles every now and then. And you know when people do silly lists of things?
Yeah.
It's kind of where I know him from. But the whole concept was just one huge, long, homophobic hate crime. It's the only way to describe it. It was the worst bad gay stereotype, and one like offensive slur after another. Even to the like really garish, flouncy clothes that he wore, and just off the scale campness that they used for him. And if you look up just excerpts of strips with him in, but the worst thing was he even got AIDS at one point from an AIDS vampire. There is no kind of constructive AIDS message being here at all. I have no idea what they thought they were doing. I believe he's been rebooted, although I've never come across him, I have to admit. But even reboots don't wash history away.
I'm on the Wikipedia page.
Is there? Oh, there's a wiki. Oh, okay.
It's got a Wikipedia page, and yeah, the visual. It does vaguely. I don't think I wouldn't have been able to have named him. I don't think if I'd ever seen in just his face. But there is a picture of a post-rebirth incarnation from Midnighter and Apollo. But whoa, yeah, that is some weird character. Extrano. Cool. That was a good pull. Well, mine, sticking with DC, I've gone for weird in an unusual sense for my last one. Just because it's a very long-running character, but it's got a few quirks and strange things that are very unusual in comics. So I'm using that as my definition of weird for this character. He's been appearing in different titles since the 1950s. And it's the Phantom Stranger.
Oh, right.
Now, the strange thing about the Phantom Stranger is that he is still so mysterious. That in the medium of comics, everything tends to get mined and remined and then revamped and then rebranded. And yeah. And there's some other factor that a writer comes along later and goes, oh, nobody's explored this part of the character. The very fact that he has stayed pretty much the same from his first incarnation. I mean, I'm not...
Costume-wise as well.
Sorry?
Costume-wise, it's almost exact, well, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, he's got his white polo neck, which really puts him... He's got his sort of... his trilby, his small-rimmed pork pie hat. He's got the cloak. He's got the medallion. it really cements him really some point in the 60s and 70s. I mean, it's a real mix of all of them, really. The hat looks quite 50s, and it's a bit of a beatnik look in combination with a strange sort of 60s vibe. He acts as the watcher of the DC universe a lot of the time. He'll just mysteriously arrive. He'll appear to be omniscient. He seems to know everything, but doesn't seem to have a lot of power to affect things. A lot of the time he'll be a narrator in a series of spooky. Early on, I think his series was him narrating. He was the kind of gatekeeper to the book. He would introduce a story and tell a story, and he might appear at the end, but didn't really do a lot of the time. It was always seen as a kind of a bit of a bad thing if he appeared. He was a bit of a pariah in that sense. The exact nature of his powers aren't really defined, considering how long he has been around. He appears mainly to be clairvoyant, and he doesn't even have an origin story. He has had a whole issue of secret origins given to him, and there were 4. It was a nice little way to do it, really. He was given 4 different origins, possible origins, in this issue of Secret Origins. I think this would have been late 80s, and the most popular one is the one that was written by Alan Moore, of course.
Oh, wow,
and it was drawn by Joe Orlando, who was he's a brilliant artist in comics since probably late 40s, 50s. He was a big EC comics guy. He was at Mad. He moved up the ranks of comics till I think towards the end of his life he was something like vice president of DC. He was involved in I think special projects and toys. Brilliant artist, but he drew this particular story, and in the story it's revealed that when Lucifer led an uprising against God, one angel would not choose between the two sides, and after the conflict had ended, God tore off the angel's wings and condemned him to forever walk the earth. And that character is revealed to be the Phantom Stranger. So he's a great character. He's visually still great. He's used to great effect, but it's just really weird that he is still in it's not even limbo. It's just he's still so mysterious. It's so strange.
That is actually a really weird thing,
isn't it?
It's just there's nothing that hasn't been, mined and mined again for our story ideas, or an easy one is like at least throw them in an origin story. So that was quite a nice way of doing it without confirming which was the real one.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, I'm trying to think now. Actually, it's a good point, equivalating into like the Watchers in the Marvel universe, them turning up just at the point of impending something. Is it doom or but it's an important
great change, event. Something, isn't it? Yeah, sometimes it's momentous moment. It's
There is some backstory that's grown up around the Watchers, but again, I suppose they're not really properly defined, are they?
No.
Other than being sort of part of the Celestials and all that kind of stuff. No, that's a really good pick, actually.
Once I started thinking about him, and it's funny, I think he was on my list, and then I think took him off my list because I wasn't even sure what connection to sorcery he had. But he's certainly one of that crowd that if there is a sorceress event going on, you would expect him to turn up. Yeah. He appears in the Seven Soldiers in the Zatanna comic. And I can't remember, I think he might be sleeping with Madame Xanadu or something like that. There's some sort of sneaky reference to him having an affair with one of the other mystical
Right.
usual cast of characters. But the more I thought about him, the more weird he seemed, just for having this very strange area of comics of being one of a few people that you still know as much now as you did when he was introduced, probably, which I find brilliant and quite refreshing. And he's still intriguing for that. So it's almost a shame that some characters didn't stay that way. I mean, Wolverine is a perfect example of that. That when he first appeared, this character from nowhere, everyone was very intrigued. And, the first time you saw him shoot his claws out of his hands and it was revealed that they weren't part of his glove, that was, crazy. He had one name for the longest time. And the more and more you knew about him, the less interesting he became.
Yes, yeah. I know what you mean. No, that was a good choice. Well, I guess if that is all our weird choices, I guess it's down to vote time.
It is. Now, I think from my point of view, I'm going to have to vote for Sorcery again. I mean, Master Pandemonium was so ridiculous, and the Phantom Stranger was so weirdly the same in the ever-evolving world of comics to have stayed as true to his original appearance as he has now. I'm going to have to vote for Sorcery again.
Well, I'm actually going to go for Sword this time.
Nice.
And I think it's mostly down to how I ended up having to approach the weirdest. And with the Sorcery, I found weird, but not weird good that I liked. When it came to the swords, I have genuine fondness for both Gru and Saxon from Mouse Guard. Yes. So the sword has it.
No, Gru. It's funny. I should write down yours against similar to mine because I am pretty much choosing on my own choices. But then, when you mentioned Gru, no, I voted now. I'm happy with the Phantom Stranger. So we've got weirdest character under our belts, and now we move on to best adapted literary character. Because of the subject matter, sword and sorcery, it seems we can't ignore where the source material, where a lot of these characters have come from. So let's start. I'll start with my third sword best adapted literary character, and this is going back to a series of books. I mean, I think partly one of the things that attracted me when I was younger to reading a lot of sword and sorcery was, or a lot of genres that are a little more fantastical perhaps, is because when I used to go into Smith's, I wanted a series of books that I could get my teeth into. So back in the day when I went to W.H. Smith's top floor, there were certain sections you could see that if you started and liked one book, there were many more books in the series, which is why I ended up reading all of the Tarzan books. I think it's like over 20 Tarzan books. There's about 13 John Carter books. It's about, 14, 16 James Bond books. There's high teens, was it close to probably 20 Conan books. So a lot of those kind of genres, and partly because of their pulp background. And one series of books that I think was I was introduced to by my mate Dave in D&D days was the Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser series.
Yes, Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser.
Is he on your list?
Also my number 3.
Hey, there you go. That makes for a nice, easy one. Yeah, I mean, great characters. They have those, straight away. It's basically a big ginger barbarian, isn't it, with a sneaky sort of grey thief. So you've got your staples. From what I remember, I haven't read them for a while, but the city of Lankmar itself was a great setting, wasn't it? And it had a particularly good mix for me. I remember of sorcerous elements from the get-go. It seemed that their adventures had a slightly more sorcerous, more fantastic elements to them than, your average Conan story wasn't always likely to have a monster or or a sorcerer in it, but Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser had a higher chance of getting something more eldritch in there. And
in the high fantasy
right
of thing, isn't it? With a lot more of that, like you said, it's a lot more commonplace is the magic in the world. So
yeah, they'd stumble across more in their adventures, and really served well in the comics world because obviously there are a lot of creators that enjoyed the source material. Back in 1973, there was the comic Sword of Sorcery, which was written by Denny O'Neil, drawn by Howard Chaykin, with Walt Simonson doing a couple of tales towards the end. Now, this is early Howard Chaykin, so he's probably still sort of in his upstart studio days. I think he's probably hanging around with Neil Adams and lots of others, the Continuity sort of studio crowd. So he's still not got the chops that I love him for at this stage, but it's still dynamic. It's still, really nicely drawn, some great draftsmanship. Walt Simonson, on the other hand, straight off the bat, early Walt Simonson in the 70s. This is probably just before he's doing Manhunter, before he goes on to other stuff. But it's still undeniably him, right from the word go. It's quite stunning. And then again, it was picked up, I think, Dark Horse once again, late 90s. This time written by Chaykin with art by Mike Mignola.
Yeah, which is why I knew you were going to pick this. I have to admit, I've not read the 70s stuff. It was this Mike Mignola series, that ink series, that I actually picked it up from, comic wise anyway.
Yeah, and Chaykin's got such a way with dialogue as well.
Yeah,
especially with people like the Grey Mouse, who obviously I think he probably can relate to a little bit more than Fafhrd. Somebody, that's chopsy and snarky. His dialogue is just superb. So yeah, I mean, I would go back and I'll have to pick up a volume. I do remember really enjoying them. Once again, probably borrowed volumes. It's come up a couple of times tonight, but there's so many things that you go back and look for and realise that you lent off somebody.
Yeah. It was Dark Horse did a collected version in 2007. Now, I looked for this a while ago.
Yeah, I did.
Couldn't find it.
No.
I think it's quite hard. Sometimes, they don't carry on publishing stuff, do they?
No.
A collection, and then that's kind of it sometimes. And that's a shame, because, again, it was... I had odd issues from the Epic Comic run. I think it was only like 4 or 5 issues anyway, wasn't it? But
yeah.
I'd love to read the whole thing through.
Yeah.
It was actually what I actually found was some of my original books, and that's why that got me thinking about the comic strip. Yeah. And then this came up, but yeah, and it's funny you mentioned D&D. It was one of those early series of books that I read, and it was at the same time that I got into Moorcock. But it's really Robert Howard, Michael Moorcock, and Fritz Lieber. They really, the three of them, were so influential. They kind of coined the term swords and sorcery.
Yeah.
And I think those three define the genre really. But Gary Gygax, who created the Dungeons and Dragons game, in the original versions of Dungeons and Dragons, in the Red Box set, and even back to the pamphlet sets, it actually stated what the influences on creating the game were. And Fafhrd and Grey Mouser were absolutely one of the key ones. I think it's like the second or third one mentioned.
Yeah.
And that's the reason in second edition D&D, you got to they actually did a Lankmar city setting.
Right.
The entire campaign, but the book is still one of my favourites.
Yeah.
It actually maps out the entire of Lankmar and all the different quarters and it's just everything. Even if you don't play Dungeons and Dragons, if you're a fan, it's a brilliant source book.
Yeah.
The whole series basically for doing adventuring in Lankmar. But you'd love to read that, honestly. It's just little. So it's kind of a big part of our D&D games for a while back when I was young as well. So
me and my mate Dave, that we used to play D&D together. We'd share, a lot of comics. He introduced me to a whole shed load of really cool comics. I'm sure I introduced him to less, but we would go to the comic shop together. But D&D wise, it wasn't really a reflection of Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, but when we first started playing, I very much favoured the big, hulking, strong barbarian fighter. And my mate Dave, he always favoured the roguish thief. So, very much, right up our street in terms of what we enjoyed playing as well as reading. We were at that time. We branch out a bit more later on, I think, but still somewhat those stereotypes are still attractive, definitely.
One thing I've never read, but I do know that when Roy Thomas was doing Conan for Marvel, he introduced Fafhrd and Grey Mouser in as characters, but not. It's kind
not
of
named, was it?
They were named, yeah.
Right.
He apparently said that it was absolutely a tribute to Fritz Lieber.
Ah, cool.
I read a lot of the Roy Thomas stuff at Marvel, and I don't remember it at all.
Yeah.
But it just came up when I was kind of, funnily enough, not whilst I was searching for anything to do, something to do with Conan from my previous show.
Brilliant. Yeah, it doesn't ring a bell. I mean, obviously the Elric one stands out. It's a big two-parter, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's both our number threes all in one.
Yes, it's nice, tidy. Number 2, Swords, Best Adapted Literary Character. Again, Shakin for me has he's one of the artists I think of primarily associated not necessarily with sword and sorcery, but with that swashbuckling, roguish, swaggering swordsman. He did a lot over the years. Now, this one isn't the swaggering, perhaps cheeky swordsman that he used to favour quite a lot. This is Solomon Kane, another Robert E. Howard creation. A Puritan, dour, dark of temperament and clothing. I picked up a volume of, there's a couple of good volumes out there of all of the Robert E. Howard, Solomon Kane tales. You can tell that Mike Mignola is a big Solomon Kane fan, because one of the stories is called The Right Hand of Doom.
Yes, yeah. Which
became very integral to his own character. But Howard Shakin did some really, really sweet Solomon Kane stories. He did some, I think, in either like Savage Tales and Savage Sword of Conan, but he also did a couple of colour Solomon Kane stories in things like Marvel Premiere. And this was when his art, so it would have been sort of mid to late 70s, and his art had that real graphic style with some, it had some broad black chiselly lines. It had an element of American advertising to it, but there was some real sweep. And even though he drew Solomon Kane with these weird stripy sleeves, I didn't mind, because the stories, I don't even remember who wrote them, but there's loads of Howard Shaking Solomon Kane stories that I've still got, and are just really key points of the character. Another one who was picked up by Dark Horse around the time that Dark Horse was doing Conan. Some great people, I think Guy Davis drew some. Mike Mignola, I think, wrote a couple of stories. Really nice mix of creators. So yeah, Solomon Kane, another Robert E. Howard creation.
It's a great choice. I do like the character of Solomon. I've read probably everything Howard did for Solomon Kane, but unfortunately, I have to say I've never read that much comics. Just thing I never got hold of. I wouldn't mind actually seeking those out sometime. But great choice of character, absolutely.
Yeah, he is. He's fantastic, and it's nice that it's another little period of time that it's what 1700s, isn't it? Really, so he's in a slightly more advanced world, different period. So he has got we've got sort of guns and pirates. It's a different period than your normal just ambiguous historical stroke prehistoric setting. So that's great.
I do. I've always loved the puritanical sort of side of Solomon as well. I think that added a lot to the character. I have to ask, have you seen the film? Did you like it?
Yes.
I quite enjoyed that.
Oh, to be honest, this is why I've slightly cheated, because I made a bit of a mistake. But he is in my best screen adaptation as well. I know we said no repeats, but he's realised too late, and it was like, there's no way I'm not going to talk about those early 70s Shaking Canes, especially after thinking about Fafhrd and the Grey Mouse. So those two sort of periods are so connected for me.
That's fine. I'll keep those comments to myself until later. Already mentioned, my number 2 is John Carter of Mars.
Nice.
I've probably gone on about JC quite a bit, actually, but I'm probably going to go on about him even more soon, because I'm awaiting delivery of the John Carter of Mars role-playing game. It's come out in the most beautiful illustrated edition I have ever seen. Completely new role-playing game, and a huge amount of resin miniatures as well for me to so this project. So I'm going to go on a lot about that when it comes out. But I guess, he's the cavalryman who is transported to Mars, where he finds that he kind of has superpowers bestowed on him thanks to, and this is not an exact science, Mars's low gravity. Now, if you apply real science, by the way, he'd just wither. But
quite the opposite.
Pulp Fiction, no, he can leap the length of an American football pitch. He's a swordsman because of his cavalry sword, although he uses a Barsoomian blade, of course, as soon as he reaches Barsoom, the native name for the Mars. Dark Horse did update a lot. And I suppose if you go to the origins of Marvel doing him, it's one of those. I kind of collected odd issues as they were available. I was quite young when that was out, and it was. I just loved the artwork. It kind of drew me in, and it is one of those where the comic book actually got me reading the source material.
Yeah.
And about a year ago, I suppose probably when the John Carter role-playing game started on Kickstarter, I blasted through and I've read all the John Carter stuff now. including the last 3 or 4 books that I'd never come across. And they're really hard to buy in paperback. Now, I don't know why, even second-hand. There's some collected works, but they still miss off the last couple of books.
It's weird, isn't it?
Very annoying. So I was glad I got to read those. But I thought that the comics aren't without problems. So it's not to do with it's an absolute true adaptation of John Carter.
Yeah.
But in ways, I think it's a better adaptation of John Carter. The Marvel stuff, especially. Dark Horse, because they got the franchise a little later, they had to update where necessary, which was all good. But I think they did a better job of preserving the whole sort of Virginian gentlemanly manner that he has. And he's got like this strong sense of justice and friendship as well. He's got a very defined view of what friendship is, and that really does influence his decisions a lot. Or also when he feels he's been betrayed. But I think they did a great job. Like I said, it's not overly true to the source material. Sometimes there's a lot of original material there. It's a guilty pleasure for me. I just absolutely love reading straightforward, don't have to think too hard about it pulp.
Yeah.
John Carter kind of sits in that quite nicely. But there's so much stuff out there. They've done him justice. They've occasionally aired a little, I think, but he's still enough to actually come in as my number 2.
There was a great series. I think Marvel did it. They had Ramon Perez on the art, and I picked it up for that. And that was when would that be? Yeah, I think that was quite recent, like within about 8 years ago or something like that. And that was remarkably true to the books that I remember.
That would have been
that's that period. Yeah. I think it was Marvel, but I think it's now gone somewhere else, hasn't it? Because I haven't seen it at Marvel for a while. But they had quite a few series, and it was quite faithful. I think maybe it was around the time of the movie. It's cool. I love John Carter though. I mean, I like I said, I powered through those books, and you know, I'm not as big a fan of Edgar Rice Burroughs as some of the other authors, like Robert E. Howard or Fritz Lieber, but there was still just that glorious, like you say, pulp escapism in those books that just it would drag you along. There was, you know, it was wonderful, you know, adventurous stories. Okay, so my number 1.
Number 2. Is it?
No, I did 3 was Fat and the Grey Mouse, so 2 was Solomon Kane.
Cool.
So my number 1, Zorro.
I considered Zorro.
Zorro. Now, there's only one reason that Zorro is number 1. I mean, apart from him being one of those epitome of pulp heroes that has influenced so many other heroes after him. There's lots of heroes that owe a huge amount to Zorro, whether it's Batman, the Shadow, anybody that has that, you know, dark and dashing look. But I haven't read that many Zorro comics, so the reason he's on my number 1 as best adapted literary character is there was a run of Zorro comics in the late 50s. I think it might have gone up to the mid 60s. It was quite a long run, and it was drawn by Alex Toth. It might have even been written by Alex Toth as well, but I think it was Dell Comics, and it's just glorious. I managed to get a collected black and white collected volume that was released a few years ago by Image. He's called, by I think certainly I was reading about Gil Kane was writing a little. It's not really a review of him, of Alex Toth, saying he was the best artist of his generation. Surprisingly few comics from somebody who was revered as much as he was, but astoundingly inspirational still. The draftsmanship, the line, but also, one thing I enjoy always looking at his work for is it's his framing, his storytelling. There are various aspects when I'm surprised how little he can put in his frames and still get the information across so vividly. I picked up an old DC detective comics because Frank Robbins had done the Batman story in the beginning. It's one of the early Man-Bat tales, and unbeknownst to me, there was an Alex Toth story in the background, in the backup, and it was about murders in a circus. And there was one panel where he showed that the circus clown had been killed, literally by focusing on these two. The clown's been killed, he's lying on the floor, but all you see are those two massive clown feet sticking up into the air with people entering the room. He's got the viewpoint just right, the viewpoint of people entering the room looking shocked, and all you can see is these two massive feet sticking up into the panel. Such a simple way to show that somebody had died and that person was a clown. It's brilliant. So I'm a massive Alex Toth fan, and the fact that he's drawn it, I do love Zorro, but I don't know him as well. But the fact that Alex Toth did this hugely impressive run on Zorro in that period immediately placed him in the top spot. So largely by way of Alex Toth, Zorro gets number one.
That's right. I was considering Zorro, but I came to Zorro quite late. I had vague memories of the Saturday morning serials being rerun.
Yeah.
And that was kind of it. I didn't really get what Zorro was about, I don't think. But it was Dynamite again. You've got John Carson there. They had Zorro for a bit, and it was that reintroduced me to Zorro. But also, they had Django.
Yeah,
and there was Django
crossover.
I seem to remember. See, Dynamite are buggers for crossovers.
Yeah.
Sometimes they make sense, sometimes they really don't. But I know that they've shoved Zorro against all sorts of things in crossovers I've seen.
But yes,
absolutely.
I do remember that. I remember being
Django one was good.
I think Tarantino was actually involved in writing it as well, wasn't he? I think so, which I only found out recently, that he'd actually helped to write the comic. I think Matt Wagner was involved as well, who we mentioned last episode for Grendel. I know he's done quite a few. He's obviously, it's right in his wheelhouse, Zorro. So, but yeah, I haven't read them. So no, I need to look those up. Hopefully, what I need is a humble bundle. That'd be great. We need a.
I was going to mention I've got a horrible feeling it's a Zorro one.
That would be. I'll have to keep my eyes open. Maybe they'll do another one. But yeah, it's great. It's another, it's another great period, really. And this is the book I go to when I need to draw a horse.
Okay, my number one. No surprise. I think I probably gave this away anyway. Has to be Elric.
Cool.
Elric of Mountbone. Michael Moorcock's probably most famous of the Eternal Champion series. He's Elric's he's a prince of the Young Kingdoms. He's an albino. He's a drug addict, an usurper, and basically can only survive his albinoism due to the mighty sword Stormbringer, which is the stealer of souls, which feeds him with the vitality he needs, basically, to carry on fighting and killing people. But he apparently appeared as early as 1971. I've heard about a French comic book with him in, but I guess I saw him in comics in the 90s when DC did Michael Moorcock's Multiverse. Now, this probably wasn't the best introduction to Elric in the comics, because I'm not just a fan of Elric, I'm a fan of Michael Moorcock, and I'm going to follow all the Eternal Champion series and the intricacies of how they cross over into each other, and how different people in different dimensions and different time streams become the embodiment of the Eternal Champion, and there's key cities and places that overlap throughout these as nexus points. DC did a nod to trying to sort of bring that to comics, and well, it wasn't very well received at the time, but it was original stories, and it was okay. And again, Boom had a go in 2011 with Elric, The Balance Lost. That was Chris Robinson and I think artist was Francesco Biagini. Apologies for pronunciation. And again, I thought that was a good interpretation of Elric. But 2014, and I seem to remember waiting for years for this to come out from when it was announced. They did The Ruby Throne. And this is a fantastic graphic novel. It's a recreation of the original Elric and Melniboné story that introduced Elric, full stop. And I think Titan Comics just absolutely nailed it. And there was a team of artists, and they just got the feel of Elric.
Right.
It's not perfect, but all I can say is Moorcock's gone on record to say it's his favourite comic of Elric. So I don't think I can really say anything more. The man himself has spoken.
That's pretty impressive, isn't it? Cool. Elric is a bit of a gap. Moorcock is a bit of a gap. I am intrigued, and I have read some. I do love the idea of the Eternal Champion, but I've read a few of the P. Craig Russell adaptations, but not a lot otherwise. Need to catch up on my Elric.
So I only had a few copies of like odd ones from the early Elrics. And are they the ones that they had like an Art Deco style cover that reminds you, do you know, like the Czechoslovakian Green Lady adverts and stuff?
Yeah, very ornate.
Yeah.
They're almost stained glass, almost. You know, it just has that kind of
Whoa! This isn't the Mike and Pete show.
I know. Lock them up.
Jeez,
lock them up now.
Stop that. That's enough. I've had enough.
Yeah.
I've had enough.
Just stop them.
Right. No, seriously. We've cut that interview in half, the chat, because it just went on and on and on. And they've got so much to talk about, but we can't give you
have
3
an
hours.
8-hour podcast.
So the rest of that will be on next episode.
Yes.
Thank you again so much to you guys. It's amazing.
We'll just tease them, though.
Oh, God, of course we will. We've got to tease them. We've got to be teased. So, yeah, the rest of that will be on next episode. And thank you very much to you two once again.
Thank you.
Brilliant work. Right, so some announcements first of all from the festival. So I've got some guests.
Festival.
We got some guests. First announced guests, we've got Junko Mizuno, who has created the design for the festival for this year.
Oh, it's pretty.
Really cute. We're going to have her on the podcast in a few episodes' time.
Yes.
So we'll have a chat about her work.
Yes, when we
there.
get all the hours between here and America and Japan.
Yes, and Japan
right,
and all that.
Yeah.
We've also got Penelope Bagiu, Hope I did that right. Doug Braithwaite, Becky Cloonan, Rob Williams, who is also coming on the show, secured. He's definitely coming on.
Yay.
And Garth Ennis. Ooh, indeed. Some really, really exciting names. So Penelope, she's a French illustrator, best known for webcomic My Life. Doug Braithwaite is best known for his work on Punisher, Wolverine, Universe X, Justice, Thor, and Journey to Mystery. So just a few big names there. Becky Clooney, she's an American manga-influenced comic book creator, best known for work on Gotham Academy, Punisher, just loads. Essentially, again,
She's
just
got loads.
Garth Ennis, nobody know who he is.
No, we'll just gloss over that one, shall we?
He's been writing comics since '89. Credits include Preacher and The Boys.
Preacher.
As well as doing Punisher as well. But yeah, I mean, both of them, Preacher and The Boys. The Boys also about to come on TV. He's loving it. And Rob Williams, his comics writer includes Suicide Squad, Martian Manhunter, Amazing Spider-Man. He's done Judge Dredd and everything. The Real Thing Jump Out. He's also written the pilot script for the Mega City 1 TV show.
I hope this passes the pilot.
Well, no, it's done. The series is...
It's done,
the series is coming up.
Then.
Yeah, he's just written that first episode. So,
brilliant.
Yeah. So, exciting times. Right, the next thing we've got, as well as a breakthrough competition, there's another competition, but this one particularly for students.
Yes.
Anywhere in the UK. Take it away.
Do you want it now?
Go for it.
Shall I do it now? Right. The Lakes International Comic Art Festival 2019 invites students of the arts, young comic art enthusiasts, and the next generation of comic creators to flex their creative talents by exploring the depths of hell to create a new comic character. This is I can't say it. I haven't said it in the practice bit. Devilishly excellent opportunity for you to showcase your hot comic art talent, and you could end up being part of the Lakes International Comic Art Festival tribute exhibition to the one and only Hellboy. Thank you, dear. Plus, there are some cool prizes. Artist Duncan Fregredo is curating the Hellboy exhibition, which will include artwork from Hellboy creator Mike Mignola, Duncan Fregredo, and others. We'd love for you to get creatively fired up and delve into the depths of the comic art underworld and develop your own inspiring character who defies the fire and brimstone to be a shining new superhero. The competition is a tribute to Hellboy, and like this lovable, intensely red and horned half-demon, your superhero must be a force for good. So it's open to all students of the arts and will be judged by Duncan, AACE board member Gemma Sosnowski.
I think that's right, yeah.
And like her festival director, Julie Tate.
Excellent. So why? If you...
The winning entries will be announced on October 5th, 2019, Hellboy's birthday.
Woo! No, why not? Go for it.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Give it a go.
Yeah, what you got to lose? Nothing.
Exactly. So, yeah, brilliant. I'm sure we'll have more news for next time as well. Right, let's talk some TV and movies and stuff.
Okay.
So, first, movies, Endgame. Avengers Endgame trailer came up, which...
is nicking the Mass Effect uniforms, I'm just saying. And you've seen them somewhere
probably
before.
From the comics, which is maybe even before Mass Effect.
Probably, but I don't care.
That's not the point, is it? I thought it was wonderful. My big thing about Marvel is the music was never quite there, but the Avengers theme tune now is stuck in my head and I love it.
Okay.
And it really ramped up the excitement and I'm like, oh my God, this is so exciting. I can't wait. And you see them all there getting ready to start battling back against the evil that's happened and they're all dressed up and they're all ready to go and it's so exciting. Why are you not excited by this?
I don't know. Maybe I'm just jaded.
Yeah,
but you know what's going to happen.
I don't care. You know what's going to happen in majority of films.
Yes, and that's what makes them boring. That's why I like different ones. I just find this all a bit corporate. I'm so sorry. I just don't. I don't like.
Nicole is a fun sponge.
I'm not a fan sponge, and I'll go and watch it, and it might be good. But I like the silly ones, like Thor Ragnarok. That was brilliant.
Yeah, but you've got to have that bit of seriousness as well.
Yeah,
You got to
I
get
found that
excited.
whole thing's a bit too serious.
Everyone's
sometimes.
dead, and they got to get back.
Everyone's dead. Oh, they're all going to be alive by the end, apart from a couple who aren't going to come back because they're too old to do the character now.
Okay. Anyway, I was excited, and I can't wait. And it sort of is the end of that phase.
Yes, thank God.
And then it starts again. Okay, well, let's talk about
me
something.
In the films, it's just.
Well, let's talk about something we've just found that you've been more interested in.
Oh.
Obviously, David Fincher's big name, and he's done a new animation, Love, Death and Robots, which we've watched a few episodes of.
We've only watched one.
Two.
We watched two.
We watched two. You were
one
so
and
drunk
two.
you can't remember how many you watched.
I had a couple of rums last night.
So it is just shorts, 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Stories, animated.
It's an anthology, dear.
So far, all British casted is what it seems to be,
it seems
which
to
is
be.
interesting.
Yeah.
So it's 18 rated.
Yes, it's a not safe for work anthology.
The first story is really interesting about
Beast Wars.
Is that what it was called?
I have no idea.
Because that's a Transformers property.
No, it wasn't called Beast Wars. It was called something else.
It's like an arena fighting thing, which I love arena fighting. But yeah, you take control of this beast with your mind, a bit like they've done with robots and stuff, and then they go at it.
Yeah.
And it's a story of this girl who is fighting back because of the abuse she's suffered.
Yeah.
And showing that she can be equally as good as the boys, essentially.
Yeah, after being asked to throw the fight, basically.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. There's
a little twist at the end.
Yeah, of course. I think there's going to be a twist in all of them.
Ooh, a little twist everywhere.
The graphics on it are gorgeous. The art style, it works really well.
Mm-hmm. I think you'll find that there's different art styles for each one.
But yeah, no, really amazing. And the second story is about 3 robots.
Going on holiday, basically.
The apocalypse has happened. Everyone is dead.
Yeah.
And they're basically touring the history of people.
Yes, yeah. Just people hanging and taking selfies with them.
But the cats are still alive.
The cats are still alive.
And there's a reference to exploding kittens, which is amazing.
Yes, we did laugh at that one.
Again, it's complete change of style. There's a lot of comedy and humour in this. There's nothing dark, really.
No, it wasn't.
It's other than skulls and death. But it's an interesting look at what we are and who we are as a race.
Yes.
So yeah, it looks really interesting. So
we've got the others to watch now.
If you're not sure, check it out. The animation is really good as well. That's the other thing, because a lot of these things in the past you'd have really poor.
Yeah.
But with David Fincher's name on it, that ain't going to happen.
No.
So absolutely brilliant. Check it out.
Yes, but definitely only if you're an adult.
Yes. Well, it's not been too bad so far.
It gets worse.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've had to flick through some of the episodes, as in I've read the write-up. So yeah, definitely has its 18 rating for a reason.
Okay. And just a brief one, we mentioned before, Ricky Gervais's new series. I know it's not animation or anything.
Afterlife.
If you want to see how you write a TV series that really hits all areas, comedy and sadness, and then that's how you do it. So just a thing, if you're interested in writing, I think it's worth watching because it is amazingly well written.
It is very, very, very good.
Very good. You're choking up already.
Sorry. Yeah, no, it's very heartfelt, but it also, the dark humour in it is definitely what you'd say it's what you say in your head, but he says it out loud.
He says it out loud. So well worth watching. I want to talk about last thing before we run away. We've started something new in our lives, and I want to just discuss it because I think people will be interested.
Oh, okay.
Dungeons and Dragons has entered our world. We've had the starter set on the side for
a few years.
Years ready to try, and we'd never done it. And then we thought, let's do it. And we've tried it. And how have you found it so far?
I love it.
What do you love about it?
I love it. I love my little character. She's
Who
brilliant.
is?
Who's Dagna Firebrand.
And what is she?
She's a dwarf because I'm only short. So I very much, associate myself with being short with an axe and slightly grumpy. So, yeah.
Just like real life.
Exactly. So, yes, I'm Dagna. And then the boys, my children, are playing as well on this one. And, yes.
Interesting.
Definitely, yes. It's hard. Well, because we're only learning, aren't we? All of us are learning, which is quite nice.
Dungeon Master.
We keep making mistakes.
It's more about the ability of having such an open world to do what you want, and
it's hard.
You don't think like that.
No, not yet. We're getting there.
You haven't got the thing saying press X to open, or
yeah. basically it. As such a Dragon Age fan, this is fun. I love this.
So we're currently playing through the starter set story.
Yes.
But I
We're
mean,
in Philander Town.
I'm not going to say I've jumped in 2 feet first already, bought my screen and bought figures and bought.
Totally done that.
Just bought a new mat so
Yes.
we can play on it. I'm not saying I've done that, but I've done that.
Totally done that. I bought the dice though.
You bought dice.
I bought pretty dice for everyone.
It's like, we only need the starter set. No, we need more.
We need dice.
We already had a load of models, so they're being used.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we just got our little models. We got paint of our little.
I don't have to. What a shame.
Yeah.
I suppose I do. But Dungeon Master, should have
you
it all
need a little-
painted up and
You
stuff.
need a little dungeon
I
master
don't need a model.
person.
No,
yeah,
that's
you
me.
do now. Yeah,
That's me.
get you the little one from the cartoon with the beard and the baldy head.
That's not me. Git. So I suppose the plan for this is to probably buy some books down the line of adventures, but then I suppose I'd love to try my own adventure. That's obviously that's where it goes.
All your writing.
That's where the big boys go to.
Yeah.
They write their own adventures and create their own worlds.
You're not one of the big boys yet.
Not
dear.
yet. No. Got a long way to go on
We still
this.
can't remember which dice to throw for what at the minute, so
Well,
we're getting there.
you're getting there. So we'll continue our tales of this if you're interested over the time, especially when we start creating our own characters, because they come with pre-made characters initially.
Yes, yeah. We're just
and-
using the ones that they
yeah.
gave us.
And we want to do more adult orientated. That sounds wrong again.
That does sound very wrong.
We want to role play adult things.
No. No. We just want a group of adults to play it together because, yes, I think it'll be different again.
And one more thing we haven't talked about. Where are you up to on your work at the moment? Comic writing, comic drawing.
It's almost finished.
Ooh, what's this then?
This is Leaf.
Leaf.
Leaf. I came up with that name all by myself.
Well done.
Thank you very much.
Why?
Because it's about a leaf.
Okay, that sounds rubbish.
It's not. It's a kids' book. This one about friendship and how it's a fox gets woken up in the woods by a leaf falling on its head, and he plays with it, and then it gets caught by the wind and goes off and gets caught where it ends up on a little pile of leaves, and there might be something in the pile of leaves that's not very happy to be disturbed, and it gets caught in a tree.
Right, you don't have to tell the whole story.
Oh, okay, that's it.
Anyway, so it's a story about a fox.
It's still about a fox.
Picture story about a
A
fox.
picture story, like my last one.
Yeah.
But it's not deep and meaningful like the last one. It's more happier. I'd say it's happy. It's got a happy ending. There you go.
And then after that, what are you doing?
I don't know.
What you do?
Do I?
Yes.
What am I doing?
We've discussed, I've shown.
Oh, yes,
Jesus.
yes, I'm doing your one.
Oh my God.
Yeah, sorry, we have so many projects we half start. No, we're doing this one,
Which is?
which is about it's your writing.
Yes.
So maybe you should say
Okay.
about your dad.
I've written about my dad, who just a normal guy, but he was a lovely guy, and I just wanted to tell
You want to tell his story?
his sort of story, a brief sort of story, not going in depth, but just about him. And I think it fits with your style, so it's written. I'm just waiting for you now to.
I didn't realise you'd
put pen
finished it.
to
Oh, you have
paper.
finished it. I've read
Yes,
it.
I have. I mean, I can
Yes.
probably go through and adjust a few things, but
I need to
the
buy a
idea is there.
I need to buy a new sketchbook. Yes.
Okay, dear.
Well, I've run out now,
Okay, dear.
so we'll do that.
Maybe get one with pages that tear outs, please. That would make my life a lot easier.
I'm not here to make your life easier, dear.
So we hope to have the fox leaf out within the next month or two.
Yep.
That's the plan. And then what we're going to call it?
What, your one?
Yeah.
I
I'm
don't
thinking
know.
Hedrick. Because that
That's
was his
nice.
name.
But it also makes you think of Hedwig, the owl in Harry Potter.
Yes. Because he had an odd name, so that's why I'm
Can
thinking
I draw him as an owl?
No. Anyway, that we hope to be out by the festival. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I don't see why
that'll be the idea. So, right. Thank you very much for listening. Next episode, hopefully we'll have Hannah Berry on.
Yes.
Fingers crossed. We can get it all sorted out and recorded. We'll hopefully have Tom starting
Oh, yes.
his
Yeah.
first episode.
Yep.
If
Go tell him.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't have to do every episode. Obviously, we're not here. We're not slave drivers. He does what he
I
wants.
seem to remember I say that beforehand, and now look at Mike and Pete.
No, they have the odd time off. It's fine, you know.
have the odd time
They're
off.
allowed to book their time in advance.
many hours are allowed a year?
So that'll be great. Another side to the podcast. So thank you very much for listening. Mm-hmm. We'll see you on the 1st of
April.
Yeah, I always forget.
April Fool's Day. We will be on the 1st then. Oh, won't we?
Well, this episode was late, so do hope.
Tell anyone.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you for listening. Find out more about the festival at comicartfestival.com. Find out more about the show and how to contact us at comicartpodcast.uk. Find us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Music composed by Pop Noir.
This podcast is part of Britpod Scene, an independent network of uniquely British podcasts that's always growing. Check out BritpodScene.com or Britpod Scene on Twitter to find out more.